Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
For Alabama's jam is the single setback. Bama going under center. They hand it off. Ryan Williams cuts it up. 25-20 foot race, and you know he's going to win it. Touchdown, Alabama. Ryan Williams, 29 yards.
Bullmeister gets it away. Let's see if LaJonte's got a chance, and he does from the 24. Straight ahead, big hole. Running at the 40, 45, 50. Cuts off to his left. There he goes. 25, 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown. Touchdown, Colorado. 76 yards. LaJonte Wester. And when this game's over, I'm going to Vegas.
A lot of time. Waits, rolls right, looks, waits, loads it up. Long and deep, wide open in the end zone. Caught, touchdown, Penn State.
So from 52 yards away from the left hash mark, Kenny exhales, puts his head down. The snap, the spot, long enough, kick, away, he doesn't have it. No! Good! Kenny kick it? Yeah! He can! Buzzer! Ball game! Cardinal win!
Marks back in there. Mayava in the gun. Wing to the near side. Snap back. Passing time. Step throws down the field to pass. He's intercepted. Picked off by Sierra Wright to the 30. 25. 20. Sierra down the near sideline. 20. 10. 5. Touchdown, Nebraska. Sierra Wright with a pick six for Nebraska. And the Huskers have taken the lead on the road.
Good morning. Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. What is up, DB?
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. You're looking around. Is something dripping on you? You good?
No. Sometimes I have to make sure, like first-person shooter mode, I always have to check my surroundings.
No chupacabras today?
No, I think we're good on that.
That's good.
We're good on that.
What about boogeymen? Any boogeymen going around?
Well, I think we're traumatized as though there's the boogeyman, but no. And if all else fails, like going forward,
yeah,
I'm just gonna call John Wick. So for anybody that thinks they're, dealing with Baba Yaga, you need to call my man John Wick.
Does John Wick deal with Baba Yaga?
Yes. John Wick is the man that you call to kill the boogeyman. We need John Wick. But we're close. We got Dana Holgerson.
Who's the is Dana Holgerson our John Wick?
Yeah. I mean, eventually.
You think so?
Yeah. Sure. I mean, are we jumping right into this?
Well, I asked how you were, and then we kind of got
I don't know.
there,
I'm fine. All right.
Yeah.
I'm
You're wearing a sweet hoodie today. I like that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I got the crest and the shield today.
Yeah.
I didn't really want to wear it because I'm not a big. This is gonna strike you. It's gonna come across as a little odd.
I'm sure I'll be stunned.
Not a big white guy. So I don't. Oh, no disrespect.
Well, he's a little white guy, so we're cool.
I don't love wearing.
You do love Jelly Roll, though. He's a big white guy.
I saw Jelly Roll at the UFC.
Did you?
I mean, I wasn't there, but I saw him.
You just saw him on the TV.
Yeah, that thing was star-studded.
Yeah.
I mean, that were
John Jones can still get it, huh?
Man.
I thought he liquefied that man's insides.
I heart John Jones.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
And he's different, and he's not for everybody. And I always like these
He's
like
had some
these
up and downs.
I like these flawed kind of characters.
So you hang out with me all the time.
Yeah. No. That's what I need you to do, is to help me keep refining. I'm a huge John Jones guy. And so there's a lot. I'm not going to get into UFC too much. Although I do think, much like UFC or much like college football, UFC has an officiating problem. A lot of illegal strikes.
Yeah.
With Oliveira and Chandler. Guys could get hurt. Let's clean that up, especially after like the 8th or 9th one. Let's chill.
It seems like common sense, and maybe.
What, you mean when you're getting hammer fist to the back of the head?
Not legal. And
I like Chandler too, so I should probably. But this is why I like the job, though, because I have to say some critical things sometimes about people that I like.
Sure.
And it's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, we're still boys.
Well, and it's, people forget you can have critical thoughts about people and still be fans.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, I really like Dylan Raiola. I need him to throw to open guys.
Oh, boy.
Like, I'm a big fan. I think he's going to be good still. I think he's going to be really good. He's a freshman, right? Growing pains. I need him to throw to some open guys.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter who the OC is. If you don't throw to the open guys, you're going to end up with about the same number of points.
Yeah, listen. So, I mean, there's lots.
There's a ton in there, right?
I love Coach Rule.
Yeah.
But at some point, you have to say,
I need to pull the Band-Aid off.
Play Jalen Lloyd.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not a. I'm not even gonna have to explain it, because if we can't see and you feel like this is a West Side thing,
no,
then we can't.
I've heard a lot of people, not West Side guys, been like, "Hey, where's Jalen Lloyd been?
You gotta play Jalen Lloyd.
You gotta play Janarin Bonner. Where's Janarin Bonner been?"
So we were right about one thing.
What's that?
By the way, I nailed the score, 28-20. You like that? Gosh, there's so much. I feel like
there is.
I don't want everybody to have to just turn the spigot off and you just like drink it.
Yeah, I gotta try and
So
dose it out in
first
digestible portions.
First things first.
Yes.
Because you brought it up. Play Jalen Lloyd.
Yes.
Why? I'll give you two reasons. I didn't even want to start like this.
Let's go.
Yes, do I think of Jalen Lloyd as family? Absolutely. But I'm not even gonna rally like this with my real family, even though I want him to play too.
Yeah.
I'm going to stick with one Jalen Lloyd just because he's not unproven.
Yeah, we've seen it.
See the other young guys that we want to play. Those
it's
guys,
a crapshoot.
Yeah. It's
because
like,
we don't know.
We're like,
we've seen Jalen Lloyd make plays in good situations, in bad situations. We've seen Jalen Lloyd make plays.
And so, like, I'm gonna ask the question because it's woefully apparent.
Okay.
It is woefully apparent. And it's not because we saw the yards per catch last year, this, that, and the other. It's for two primary reasons. And I think it's the two primary reasons that I think Nebraska still has a chance to function at a high level under what I think is going to be a pretty, when it's all said and done,
mm-hmm.
and like it kind of settles, I think the staff is going to be really good.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think I do trust Coach Rule to use his eyes and trust his heart. He's going to have to make some tough decisions.
Mm-hmm.
But for the immediate future now, there's two reasons why I want Lloyd to play, and guys like Lloyd.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, competitive stamina.
Mm-hmm.
My number one favorite quality of him coming out of high school, and I told you guys he's way younger than everybody else,
mm-hmm.
but he doesn't need a babysitter.
100%.
This dude.
You've said that all along.
All
along.
Because I saw him when he first got to
mm-hmm.
West Side.
Yeah.
I'm like, shoot. Because I'm a big body language guy.
Mm-hmm.
So what Jalen did was challenged me to get past my preconceived notions about how as competitiveness relates to toughness versus outward behavior.
What it looks like.
And I should know better because I parented a guy who doesn't say anything, and he's extremely tough and he's extremely competitive. So I should have known better, right? But as I watched him, and even the play he got hurt. See, I'm gonna take you way back. This is how you know I love him.
Mm-hmm.
Like I love him because not because he was ours. I love him because I think if you just inject his DNA, not DNA, his characteristic, his traits
mm-hmm.
into
like his mindset.
Into 90% of the people he comes in contact with, you're going to give yourself a chance.
Yeah, you're going to be better off.
Because he's very unselfish, and he doesn't bitch and moan out loud. Even though things bother him,
mm-hmm.
he finds a way to channel it and not burn the whole thing down.
But into being competitive.
And he's competitive.
Yeah.
Even on the play in which he hurt his ankle, and he missed the state, because people forget, like, he didn't play in the state championship.
Mm-hmm.
It hurt bad.
Yeah.
Now, his demise, or that injury, opened up the door for another hurt dude to have to play offense. But, see, that scared me because I didn't want him to have to play offense. And even on the play that J-Dub got hurt, It was a tough, contested, over the middle catch. I thought he fractured his ankle.
Mm-hmm.
We needed it. Tough, deep catch over the middle. Spun around. He didn't. I remember like it was yesterday. This was 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
When he caught the ball at Phelps Field, he was hurt. He was hurt like a son of a gun.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't let the ball go, maintained the catch, and he didn't lay on the field. Got a fracture, right? Ankle.
Mm-hmm.
Like just it's a little hairline thing.
Got up off the field. But, I mean, anybody who's hurt an ankle like that.
Like, just kind of hobbled off the field. He hobbled off the field. And I'm like, you know what? I don't care what that dude does the rest of his life. I'm riding with him.
Mm-hmm.
I just am.
Yeah.
Because most people will let that go or they'll lay on the ground or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, oh, shoot, man, we got one.
Yep.
We got one. I watch him compete on the national level in track against elite level competition. And the most selfish sport on the planet.
Yeah, you're talking about guys that are going to be Olympians.
Which is track and field.
Yeah.
The most selfish sport on the planet.
Because it's all about you.
Yeah.
It has to be.
Yeah. Even more so than wrestling.
Yes. It has to all be about you.
I'm like, this dude gets it.
Mm-hmm.
So the competitive stamina. Then the other thing is just his emotional maturity.
Mm-hmm.
So keep finding guys like that. Now, I'm not going to – it's too early, in my opinion, to say, Dana, why did you not see this guy? Why did you not see this guy? Now, after this week,
sure,
then we can have that conversation. Because there's probably a handful of guys, I'm going to say right now, 5 or 6,
mm-hmm.
whether it's offense and defense, that you probably needed another week to fade out and fade in. Now, Dan doesn't have as much to do with defense,
mm-hmm.
but defense has, in a couple key spots, they have some of the same issues.
They got some problems too.
So,
well, and what you see with Jalen doesn't necessarily pop. Like, you kind of have to learn that about him.
Yeah, so that's what I was just getting ready to say. Yeah. Thank you. So let's say you're Coach Holgerson and you come in and you watch, because I told you guys, the first couple handful of days, didn't say a word.
Yeah.
He didn't say anything. And he's just watching.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you're rolling tape, you could, unless somebody says, hey, man, this little number 19, this dude's the real deal.
Well, you probably want to find out for yourself anyway.
Right? Because there isn't a ton of tape.
Yeah.
You're interested in schemes,
like one catch a game,
verbiage, and all this, that, and the other.
And he doesn't physically, like, obviously he's athletic.
But this week, yeah, because he's a
little guy.
He's 176 pounds.
He's not like Bonner where you're like, oh, that guy's a freak.
Yeah.
Let's get that guy the ball.
And even Bonner, it's not his physical traits.
No, but it's easier to see the physical traits.
He's relentless.
Yes.
Again, you're talking about two guys. It's funny. Two of the guys that we're talking about are two of the guys that could easily just, oh, man, just
be real easy to check out.
Yep. Had to pee in the cereal.
Got passed over.
Mindset. You're playing these other guys. I feel like we're pretty good.
Hey, you want a big body wide receiver? I'm right here.
Hey, but when you need me,
I'm here. Let's go.
I'm here.
Ready.
See, so that's the second reason. Because you got to use him as a case study. What is it about what's been instilled in him that allows him to be ready when called on? And yeah, sure. Do I gravitate more towards him because he's closer to me? He's much more talented than I ever was. But at some point I had to make a decision. If I can't be the guy, I sure am going to be ready on standby. So those are the guys that I ride with.
100%.
Right? Those are the guys that I ride. And he's constantly ready on standby.
Well, you know what the other thing is that they are that they're the opposite of something you hate. They're not front runners.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't be in situations like, because listen, Lloyd and Bonner are actually really similar in the sense that they brought in guys that you think kind of do what they do, even though they're different.
And it would be easy to be in your fields because they got
more highly touted.
They got some NIL money.
They got some money. They're more highly touted. Like Ja'Cory Barney was brought in essentially to do what Jalen Lloyd does.
Yeah.
Right? He's more highly touted, probably got a little more NIL money. Like, that's a guy that'd be really easy to be like, oh, well, he's younger than me. How am I ever going to pass that guy up?
Or he's get early on, because there's this semblance of Barney being super talented.
And he is. Barney's a guy I'll ride with too.
And you don't want him to go home either.
Yeah.
So you try to throw this guy a bone.
100%.
And
you've struggled with Miami guys in the past.
Yep.
Right?
So you got to keep him engaged. And I said this a long
time. But Barney
time.
is a guy I will also ride with.
I said this a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
And as Coach Solich and I kind of like our relationship grew, he's a guy I have a huge affinity for.
Mm-hmm.
There is this thing that coaches do. And I'm not saying, hear my heart, everything else I said was 100% not my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
This
opinion.
This is my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
There are certain times where coaches look at a situation and they have to decide between a handful of guys.
Mm-hmm.
And every coach that's coached knows this. At least guys at a high level where it's been competitive.
There's close, right?
Yep. There's a situation you have to make, and you have to say to yourself, okay, if I make a decision to play this guy and this guy, who's going to least rock the boat? That's probably the guy I'm going to mess over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're going to mess over the guy that can handle it.
That's going to show up anyway.
That can handle it.
Yeah.
Right? And that sucks for that guy.
It does.
Right?
It does.
Like, that's the dirty little secret. Is for being the better guy.
This is what I'm telling you.
No, I know.
It does.
I know. It's for being the better guy.
It'll eat you up, right? You'll do things like break fire extinguisher glass cases and yeah, never mind.
But when it comes to football, you're still going to be there.
Right.
Right? It may mess up your personal life. It may mess up you emotionally, mentally, whatever. But when it comes to practice time and it comes to Saturdays, you're still going to be there.
I was so emotionally immature.
Mm-hmm.
We're playing Missouri,
mm-hmm.
and I'm playing in kind of mop-up duty time, and Turman gives me a run, or he checks into a play, and I end up scoring, right? We're playing Missouri. It's in Lincoln. You could roll tape.
Mm-hmm.
Normally when I scored, I'm a big hand the ball back to the official guy. So it's late in the game. I score, and I slam the ball down, and I rip my chin straps off. There's 74,000 people yelling, so they can't hear me.
Mm-hmm.
And I literally said, effing play me. Play me, I'm telling you. Why wouldn't you play me?
Mm-hmm.
This is what I'm saying. Like, as I'm stomping back like a child on the way to – this is, honest to God, true story.
You just scored and you're mad.
Yeah. Probably the last time I could – that's not the last time because I know I've said the F word since then. But one of the times before I was like, I met a lot of guys on campus, Chris Buba. Like, obviously, my mindset changed.
Sure.
But, and so as the years have gone on, like we always talk about the competitive spirit and why I love Coach Solis the way I do and this, that, and the other. And he told me something that I use for 20 years and people think it's mine, but it's not. It's just human nature to neglect the constants.
Yeah.
You always fret over the variables.
The guys that don't have to be babysat.
It's why you trick off your responsibilities at home and worry about work and all those other things because you figure the people at home are going to be there.
Yeah.
I'm cool there. Like, so you don't give it the attention it needs because you take it for granted.
Squeaky wheel gets the grease.
So, like, that happens a ton.
Yeah.
And coaches have to do that.
Sucks for the constants.
Oh, it's miserable. But as long as they're investing in you, it can keep you going. Because I used to say this. Hey, just throw me a bone, man.
Every once in a while.
Just throw me a bone.
Just a little bit of table scraps.
Throw me a bone, man. I want to win. Just throw me a bone. Mm-hmm. So you need the Lloyds and the Bonners and the Emmett Johnson. Emmett Johnson, there is no better example of that mindset than those three.
Mm-hmm.
Than those three.
And who are the first three guys that we see come off the milk carton?
Because this is speculation,
mm-hmm.
but a guy doesn't come in the waiver wire or the transfer portal market without a good landing spot. So if I'm Dowdell or I'm Nair or I'm Banks, like I'm sure those guys have incentive to be here.
Yeah.
Right?
Financial or otherwise.
Whatever it is, they have incentive
they have a reason to be here.
And
as opposed to somewhere else.
And if you're pod committed, you're probably thinking, man, I need some sort of return on this. You ain't just about to stay here for free.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So there's this thing where you're like, I need this to happen.
It's a bad mindset though.
Listen, it creeps up on you if you're So it's easy for us.
It is.
So let me tell you let me give the coach's vantage point.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's easy for us to poke and say, play that guy. As a coach, what you're saying is, okay, I see it. Let me stay with this. This is what I do. I teach.
Mm-hmm.
I can make this work. So real time, you don't need a ton to push you over the edge in your conviction that what you're doing is actually constructive.
Right, because you're
in it.
Yeah, you're already slanted to believe that, right?
You're already in it.
When it's the filter, right?
Yeah.
When you've got this filter on there,
so I'm sure EJ or McGuire or whomever else, they're thinking, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there it is.
You need less positive reinforcement to validate.
Because even I said this real time during the game. I'm like, hey, I kind of low key know what Ford has gone through the last handful of weeks. Way to respond.
Yeah.
So you think Coach McGuire isn't saying that? So I'm not. So I get it.
I do too.
I get it. But you have to be able. So real learning occurs when you know what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to pull back here for a second, and you have to be. We got to make some super tough decisions for Monday, right? And it's like, ooh, desperation versus best plan of attack. Desperation. So you got to get counsel. I got to pull myself out of it. Hey, if we do this, this, and this is a super talented team. We're young. We're undersized. Like, if we do this and this, and it's the last, and then I get feedback, and then I have to talk to my fellas, and then the coaches are like, hey, let's do this. I don't know if those guys do that. I don't. Because in a vacuum, it would be easy to say, well, this is what I've done. It's yielded results. I'm going to stay with it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's a sounding board. That's why I didn't mind. I don't mind the snow zooms. I don't mind the Holgerson things. Because everybody, I always tell people the worst thing I could do for me, like if you truly don't like me, just turn me over to myself. Eventually I'll blow it.
Yeah.
It's just human nature.
Yeah. You leave yourself to your own devices.
Yeah. I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
Right? There's a reason people lose their mind when people go
solitary
out of town.
Confinement or whatever. Yeah. There's a reason that's the worst punishment in a prison, right? Solitary.
You say, oh, man, Natasha, she's got to work 12 hours, man. It's just me and the dogs. And it's like, ooh, not that you're going to go jump off a bridge or go skydiving, but your temperament changes.
Yeah. Honestly, the dogs help. If it weren't for the dogs, we might be in trouble.
Right? The temperament changes.
Yeah.
So it's the same way with coaches. So to go back to it, you've got to look at playing guys like Lloyd and Bonner. Bonner was getting the exact same plays as Fedoni.
Yeah, and they look better.
Yes and no.
Okay.
The results look better.
Sure. Yes.
The concept was the same.
Exact same. Yeah, I mean the results. The results look better.
So that's where you draw this.
Execution was the exact same.
So that's where you draw this line in your head between players and plays.
Yeah. Schemes,
players
versus execution.
And plays.
Right.
And then it kind of morphs into scheme versus execution. But I would start with those three guys and what makes them all similar. Lloyd, Bonner, Johnson. Then figure out what you need to do defensively to get over the hump.
We'll get
to that.
Who else on your team has the same characteristics as those guys? There's more coming up next on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Tough result. You know, I thought the guys laid it on the line. You know, play here or play there. And even on that last drive, you know, the ball goes through our hands. They catch it, get the first down. Just you know, really in the first half, two big plays for them that went through our hands resulted in the touchdown. The play to get us down to the 6-yard line. So, you know, I kept trying to calm the guys on defense down on the sideline, saying, "Hey guys, this game's gonna come down the fourth quarter. We all know it is." You know, and it did. So, but credit to Dana, you know, to be able to come in after a week and be put in those situations, and even at the end trying to move the ball, final plays, fourth down. You know, that what I do know is that will only get better and better and better. I think offensively, you're just now beginning to see the genesis of what I know will happen. But our special teams versus some really special returners showed up. We kicked the ball well, kicked off well. We blocked a kick today. So a lot of things that we did well. Take away maybe one play here, one play there, but that's football, and that's the new Big Ten. As I told our guys, this isn't like the old Big Ten West, you know, 17-13. When you come out to USC, they've got great players. You're gonna have to make a lot of plays, and so disappointed, but encouraged by some of the things that I saw.
We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. DB.
What up? I'm just reminiscing over that catch from Lloyd.
Which one?
The one where he got hurt.
Oh, in state or for was it semis?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
Yeah, that's a dude.
I'm gonna see if I can find it.
That's a dude that I'll ride with.
Weird.
I'll ride with Bonner.
I've huddle up.
I'll ride. You always have huddle up. I'll ride with EJ.
I don't know if you know who we play, but I may be on huddle the rest of my life.
Well, at least till Monday. I'll ride. And you know what? This is a guy that kind of doesn't fall into the same category as those other guys, but I'll ride with Barney too.
Yeah,
that's a tough dude.
I like Barney. He is tough.
He might be. I mean,
he is tough.
I don't know what his mentality's like, although I have to imagine it's pretty good.
So, and
that's one of the toughest dudes on the team.
So I get it, right? You think you have this prototype in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
You see these DBs in the Big Ten, and I mean, there's some
some big dudes.
SC makes the all-bus squad.
100%. You can't. I mean, there's nothing wrong talent-wise with SC.
Deuce Robinson.
Yeah.
Woo. But listen,
now, he's so big he couldn't stay in bounds on that catch.
So, and you could tell it's a fine line between maturity and just being certifiable, like competitive.
Yeah.
This dude yaps. But anyway, I say all that to say, you get kind of this thing in your mind where, I need my guys to look like this to handle guys.
Be able to hang.
Guys that look like this. Yeah. Sometimes you just got to go with toughness.
Yeah.
And because
Barney checks that box.
I say this all the time. We just said this on Sunday or Saturday to the guys. Sometimes real toughness is landed on the line knowing you could get your ass whipped.
I would argue
that's real toughness, because what most people will do,
they'll lay it on the line when
they'll turn tail.
Front runners.
Yeah. They'll turn tail. So I keep telling them that's how you pick the name, right? They'll turn tail. So I remember watching guys like Corey Dixon and Abdul and Reggie Ball, and I mean they called it, that was like the little itty bitty committee. They were the IBs.
Tyrone Williams.
They were the IBs. Nah, Tyrone Williams was like 6'1" and a quarter, and he played defense too. So, I mean, I'm talking about our wide receivers.
Oh, okay.
I mean, because between Abdul, Reggie, Corey,
Reggie Ball wasn't a big guy.
I mean, them guys, they couldn't have been, but they're gonna be pissed. But they couldn't have been 5'9",
maybe.
You know what I mean?
Maybe.
But they just like to get
at.
We call it gotta.
Yeah.
Get after that
bunda.
Yeah, that's that gotta crew, right?
Yeah.
Like you gotta come see them.
Yeah.
So maybe you do some things where you play Barney and Lloyd. Yeah, you just do.
That's what our guy RP asked about. Why not play them both at the same time?
RP. Oh, Rhino?
Yeah.
Where's he at this morning?
On Twitter.
Oh,
he asked a good question.
I'm slow motion, man. I haven't been doing the.
He asked a good question to me. He texted me Saturday or Sunday. I don't remember which. After the game.
Probably after depositing all his money in the bank.
He asked me a good question, and it kind of goes to what we've been talking about the NIL money, kind of how that sort of predisposes you to maybe want to play certain guys. And I think you have to get to the point, and he asked, I think it was a fair question. He goes, is there anything there besides, because we talked about, hey, you see one positive thing and it kind of is oversized in your mind, right?
Yeah, because you're looking for
a
proof of concept.
Yeah, you're like, I know this guy can do X, Y, Z. I've paid him this money. I need it to work.
Yeah.
I see one positive thing. You're like, there it is.
Yeah.
And then that sticks out in your mind, right?
A natural tendency.
Human nature, right? Is there a part of it, do you think at all, where coaches go, or is this might be too fan galaxy brain thing here, but I think it's a fair question.
I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, you're kind of like trying to put the pieces together in a way that maybe, you're not, like you ever see Beautiful Mind?
Yeah.
So like, he's got like all the equations and stuff. Like you're sort of trying to beautiful mind the situation when maybe there's not anything there, right?
Okay.
Is there anything to it where you go,
love that movie, by the way.
Hey, I'm a big Russell Crowe guy. Gladiator 2 comes out this week.
He's not in it.
No, but he's the original.
Last movie I saw him in, I did not love. Last two movies I saw him in.
What was that?
I didn't love his role.
Are you not entertained?
Unhinged. And then I can't remember the other movie, but he played a cop that was covering up evidence.
Oh, we don't like that.
But he ended up getting the bad guy. But anyway, back to proof of concept when you're paying guys money.
Yeah. So is there anything that goes to, hey, if we don't play these guys, we're going to have a hard time getting the next one?
Yes. That's the thing.
Right? That seems fair. That's
Did
a
he
fair.
ask,
He did. He asked that question. He goes, is it
That's a thing.
And I go, hey, and I get it.
That's a thing.
And I go, hey, as long as you pay them what you're owed, I don't think you can promise them anything else.
And there's another thing, too. Gosh, I'm going to say this. How much time do I have?
3 minutes.
Total speculation.
Yeah.
100% God is my witness. And you don't have to buy it. You don't. This is what I think as I'm watching this unfold. Because there's a handful of guys I would not play.
Mm-hmm.
I just wouldn't. Like, I can't ride with you. But I'm going to put that aside for a second. I do think there is this thing in the coaching staff and in Coach Rule in particular, his character traits, where he is one of those guys that will I think his number one thing that he wants in someone that he's going to associate with is loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
It may even trump, do you have my best interest at heart? But if it's not, it's probably do you have my best interest at heart? Like, are you for me?
1A.
Then loyalty.
1B.
Yeah. Okay.
It's hard to be one without the other.
It's really 1 and 1A.
Fair.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Right. So, having said that, there is this thing for this group. There's this, because this is the elephant in the room.
Mm-hmm.
There's this group that was loyal to the soil for you, that has been through the ringer.
Didn't leave when Frost got fired.
And
didn't leave after last year.
It would have been much more difficult if they did. The transition would have been much more difficult.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have had a chance to build the foundation. You wouldn't have had a chance to lay the blueprint. You wouldn't have the opportunity to get to your 6th win for a bowl game. All of those, that's not my opinion.
No, that's fact.
That's fact. That's fact.
There's a
right
coming.
You wanted Nash to wrestle. You wanted Tommy Hill to have an opportunity at second monies. You wanted Ty Robinson to anchor the middle. You wanted the leadership of Isaac Gifford. You wanted to develop the maturity and physical talents of Deshaun Singleton. There's a lot. You wanted to reward Thomas Fidone for coming back from multiple knee surgeries and laying it on the line and coming to voluntary practices.
Transfer offers.
Right.
All
of that is in his Rolodex. And there comes a point where it's like, okay, I've done all I could for you.
I gave you every opportunity.
Some of you guys will be going to the Shriners Bowl, East-West. You're in a good spot where you've increased your brand. I say thank you. Cool. Next.
We got to move on.
But the tricky part is you still want that one win for the bowl game, because that internally was your goal. We can get to a bowl game. So we can have all these opinions. Well, he should do this and Coach Rule should do that. And I'm out on Coach. But listen, when you're task and goal oriented and you respond well to loyalty, those are the things that we can't put a premium on when we're busy critiquing and evaluating. Not right or wrong, just different. And that's what they're having to reconcile. I'm telling you, I feel it in my bones, man.
And there's more in there that I want to talk about.
Like that giant-ass needle you made me put in my...
We'll get to out of breath Brian here in just a second. We'll be back. More Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Yeah, I think what Dana's done is amazing. I mean, in such a short amount of time. And the first half, we only had 28 plays. Part of that's, when you score on defense, kind of flips those numbers. But we had a couple opportunities, to maybe make a little bit more, and we didn't do it. But just the verbiage, the language, the timing, the ease with which guys got in and out, and guys, haven't maybe touched the ball as much, made some plays, and they're like, Janier and Bonner today, did some really good things. So at the end of the day, offensively, they played man against us, and we just we're trying to find ways to win versus man. We have to find more and more ways to win versus man. And I think that was really at halftime kind of some of the things that he was looking for.
Wrapping up hour number one here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. Joining us now on the Hurrdat Hotline is our guy out of breath, Brian. What's going on, B? What's up, Brian?
What's going on, fellas?
Hi, buddy. How we doing?
Hey, I'm sounding calm, but I'm really furious inside.
Let's go. Let the hate flow, B.
One, I'm going to start off, I don't want to hear nobody telling me in April and over the summer that what I see down there, and I know it's not talent. I've seen football players. I've seen feet. I've seen hips. I know what a good football player. We don't got them down there. And it leads me to go back to what Boyd Epley said when Mike Riley was here that we never tackled, that we needed to stash talent during it for things like this, for the transition. Now we're still in the same, to me, we're back in the same predicament where we're playing players from a previous staff because of their loyalty and they showed up, and Rule's a good guy. That's how old coaches used to do when they would go to a new school. i.e. Roy Williams when he went to North Carolina. Okay, you pay respect to your seniors, the upperclassmen. They just don't got it. And now it looks like when we need players or looking for other players, we don't got them because we ain't stashed nobody in the deck. So really, for me, I'm still stuck with the same question. Are we in this state going to give this coaching staff time to do what they need to do so we can get a team? Because I'm tired of starting over, and I'm tired of us doing it. So we don't get what we want, we ready to get rid of somebody. We need to build up the talent down there, and every time we switch a coach, it stops that from happening.
Yeah.
And that's what I see as an issue, and that's what I hope we let this man coach long enough here so we can get people in the closet or in the cabinet for us. That's my point of view.
Ryan, appreciate the call. I don't think he's wrong.
He's gonna win.
Yeah, you got to give him time.
He's.
I will say, I do think there's one thing that, and I do think he's going to win still. I 100% think that. Like, I have no doubt about that. I do think they are stacking talent. You look at some of the last two classes, you look at the next one coming in. I think they are stacking some really good players. If you talk to any of our recruiting experts, like our guy, like Schaaf or Tim Verghese or whoever, seems like there's maybe a couple more coming in this class still that we don't even know about yet. So that's something to keep an eye on. But here's the thing that I will say, if I had one critique of Coach Rule, I do think there's a part of him, because of the Carolina experience, I think has made him super wary of being even a little transactional with people. I do think he might be, maybe not even consciously, I do think he might be sacrificing potential growth or whatever that looks like this season with younger guys, whether that means more wins or not, I don't know. I do think he might be sacrificing potential growth this season to make sure he does right by the older guys. I think that's the thing that's happening. Because I could make an argument, whether it's...
Do me a solid.
Yeah.
Say that the last part one more time. I'm processing real time. So I'm trying to literally pit what I feel versus what I'm hearing. And I need to...
Sure.
Okay.
So I think he is, whether consciously or not,
okay,
I think he is sacrificing growth this year to do right by the older guys.
I could see that.
Because I think I can look at, and listen,
I could see that.
I'm not hating on these guys. I disagree with Brian in the sense, I do think they're good football players.
Yeah,
I think there's a mental block.
Me too.
Or a physical or emotional block or something.
So
I think there's something that prevents them from playing to their level of talent right now.
So here's you want the best case study? And I think I can use him because he hasn't been bad.
Sure.
He's just not who he was a year ago.
Who's that?
Nash.
Sure.
Right? Nash was incredible last year.
And I thought he could take another leap.
Yeah.
Didn't make the leap I thought he could. And you could argue has regressed a little.
So I'm very leery of that.
In production, he's
okay. You don't have to defend it.
All right.
I'm just going to tell you how we're different.
All right.
Sometimes I look at guys and I'm like, you weren't as good as you were a year ago. Why is that?
What happened?
Sometimes it's because guys are hurt. Sometimes it's because they're asked to do something different and we don't really realize it. Sometimes it's because you're on tape.
Yeah, you're higher on the scouting report.
So the easy thing to say for people is, well, he's regressed. We're not developing. There could be a multitude of reasons.
Yeah.
I use Nash because he was so good down the stretch last year that we had this thing of growth. And there could be a multitude of reasons that we're not seeing that same deal. Like sometimes schemes are different too.
Yeah.
Right, but he's clearly not as impactful.
Sure.
But I would be reluctant to say, oh, he's not as good. So there, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like that's
fair.
fair. That's just how I do it.
Well, because there's more nuance there than
than for people
he's
just
better
to
or
say
he's worse or whatever, right?
But I will agree with you, Ars. There are some players that it's in there. But they're showing you signs like you're their biggest fan. And as a coach, that's a dangerous place to be.
Because it's hard to be objective.
I tell young people all the time, I can't be your biggest fan. You belong I can't want this more than you.
Mm-hmm.
Those are guardrails I put in for myself.
Yeah.
When you're trying to invest in somebody other than you, and it could be a relationship too. It doesn't
100%.
have to be athletics, right?
Yeah.
Because those people can quietly drain you of your spirit.
Yeah.
And you don't even realize it because you're in the business of championing other people.
100%.
So you're not cognizant of it real time.
Yeah.
Right? But I do think they have a lot of good.
And this isn't even to say
they have a lot of good players.
Yes. I think they have a lot of talented players.
You don't think that Tommy Hill is not good enough to catch 2 interceptable balls? You don't think Tommy Hill is not good enough to push a guy out of bounds?
Mm-hmm.
That's not talent.
Right.
It's not.
That's just make
That's
a play.
Not talent.
I agree.
So,
like Malcolm Hartzog being right there and not catching an interception in the end zone, that's not talent. He's there. He's in the spot. He jumped high enough. Ball just goes through his hands, right? Like, you got to make the play. That's not a talent issue. That's not a scheme issue.
Buddha is talented enough to intercept that ball that was thrown behind a running back.
Mm-hmm.
Or Lemon.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. At some point, you got to make a play.
There's lots of those.
At some point, you got to make a play.
So we have to be careful of the whole
They're not good
talent
enough.
versus ski. Like you have, because not all the situations are created equal. But if you do want to lay something at the feet of just generally speaking, at some point as a staff, you reach a crossroads where you owe it to somebody other than yourself to get the desired outcome you want.
To give somebody else a chance.
No, that's not what I'm saying. You owe it to somebody other than yourself, because this happens all the time in teaching. Man, I know Timmy can do it. Man, I know Timmy can do it. I can't give up on Timmy. I can't give up on Timmy. And you're so invested in your desired outcome that you lose sight of the totality of the end game, which is the enrichment and the total educational experience for the classroom.
Okay, yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
So you owe it to somebody else, right? Because as loyal as whether it's the fan base or ticket say or whatever people supporting your program, that they keep showing up and they keep laying it on the line, you do too. And sometimes you're going to have to clean up spilt milk. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to have to clean up spilt milk. They got a little bit of spilt milk they got to clean up.
Joel brings up a good point.
What's Joel?
The mayor.
What's Shafe?
He says there's no greater.
What he's thinking about volleyball.
He says there's no greater loyalty than a fan base that gives you absolutely everything after 8 years of losing. You need to repay that loyalty first and foremost.
Yes and no.
Okay.
Well, yeah, he's saying basically what I'm saying in the first part.
Yeah. The greater you owe to somebody outside yourself,
but not first and foremost. You reach a point, where
you do owe that loyalty.
Where you got to cross the road, though, right?
Yeah.
So they're at the fork.
Yeah.
So it's not first and foremost. And maybe if he was probably talking to me audibly, he may not have said that, typing maybe, so I'm not going to get caught up on the semantics. But it's not first and foremost.
Yeah.
Where we agree is the very first part, and they're at that fork.
Yeah. And
the fork. So you're sitting at 5. What's the last couple of games look like where you know what you're dealing with and you keep hoping it will change because you know someone's capable?
Yeah. I mean, you want a really good example of that? Of a guy?
Yeah.
Isaac Gifford. That is a guy that is physically capable in every way you could want him to be to play that position. He hasn't made the plays you would like him to in order to win games at the level you want to. It's not to say he's a bad guy. That's not to say he's loyal to the soil, as you like to say. That's a guy that hasn't probably made enough plays for his physical abilities.
I didn't come up with loyal to the soil. I can't remember who did. Maybe Clint or something. I don't know. Somebody did.
Nate, hang on here. We'll try and get to you here in a little bit. But coming up next, we've got Sam McKewon from the Omaha World Herald here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio. Here is the sports editor for the Omaha World Herald, Sam McKewon.
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
Sam McKewon.
We're gonna throw the ball. You just stand back there and throw it where you want to go. That kind of thing.
Sam McKewon.
Are you guys going? Sure.
Now, Sam McKewon.
Mayava hands out, gets a snap, looks middle, and going to be rushed, rolls out. And Ty Robinson grabs in, the ball is loose. The Huskers pick it up. Makai Bear gets the fumble. Robinson forced it. Huskers have it at the SC 16-yard line. Second turnover of the day.
Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're joined now by Sam McKewon from the Omaha World Herald. Sam, how are you this morning?
Hey, pretty good. How are you guys?
Doing all right.
Yeah, I'm all right.
We're hanging in there.
Yeah.
I tell you what.
I love the weather, but other than that, we got a gauntlet of an opponent coming up on Monday. So your boy's a little short on sleep, man. How about you?
Yes. So you guys, it's 7 days here for you guys,
Yeah.
and that's, I'm really glad that both teams just made it all the way through, and no injuries or no major injuries, so that everybody can kind of see what'll happen on Monday night.
Yeah.
Should be a great game. You talk to Millard South players, and I mean, they talk a lot about it. And so, I'll be curious to see how whether they're over amped almost, whether, and contrasted with your team, which has just won so many games in a row that I don't think you get too high or too low. So I'll be curious to see how they approach the early part of that game, because I think if either team gets up by 14 or 17, it's going to be hard to come all the way back. That's just my sense.
Yeah, I think so. That there's it's weird, but I think I can say this out loud. I don't really care, but for me, so there's two facets. There's the competitor in me that's like, yeah, I want every opportunity, because they're more talented than we are. There's no question about that. They're older, whatever, right? But then there's this, well, we've kind of been there. There's some experience of the moment even though it's not with these guys. So I'm anxious to pit like all those little like talent things in a competitive arena, right? Because there's coaching, there's strategy, there's managing emotions. Those are all the things that I love, right? So but at the end of the day, and I said this about them forever, they're probably the one team where you can play harder longer and it still may not yield the results you want because of their talent, right? So that's kind of that's the challenge that we're going to embrace.
Yeah, they got 4 or 5 wide receivers on every play.
Yeah.
And one of them 6'6", one of them 6'5". They're tight ends, but they're not really tight ends at the high school level. One's 6'6", one's 6'5", one's Deshaun Prince, one's Samir Hill.
And
they can run the ball.
You know what's scary?
Tough.
You know what's scary? Is that I think their best receiver is the least talked about.
Amarian?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Amarian Jackson. Yeah.
He's
the fifth. He's the fifth one. Yeah. There's 5 of them.
He might doesn't even. Listen,
he might be the best one.
Sam, I'm telling you. Trust me when I tell you. And I listen. I'm not paid, and certainly I have no vested interest. He's the most complete. He's a nightmare, and it's primarily because, number one, he doesn't need a babysitter, and number two, he has the widest range of skill sets. Like, he's a great route runner. He makes traffic catches. He's got unbelievable body control. And sometimes when he works in the slot, sometimes it's not even fair. You know what I mean? Because he's getting your second or third best matchup. And he had 1,000 yards seeing everybody's number one defender a year ago. So it's like,
yes. Yeah, I mean, they're really, really good.
Yeah.
And, we'll see. I think it'll be a great game. I think it'll be close and competitive. Got to get the quarterback to the ground.
Yep.
Got to sack him.
Yep.
Because he will hold on to it to go for the larger play. Yep. Got to sack him. And if he gets away, which I covered their game against North, and I also saw him play a couple other games. If he gets away, it's very, very hard to stop them because somebody in that secondary is going to get open. But if you can get him to the ground, you can sack him 3 or 4 times, it'll be close. I think it's going to be a very, very good game. I'd probably give a slight favorite to your opponent, but I don't know. It's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, as am I.
Sam, let's hop into Nebraska here. Obviously, a lot to talk about. How would you differentiate what we saw on Saturday from an offensive standpoint from what we'd been seeing with Marcus Satterfield as the play caller? Like, what were some of the key differences you noticed?
Mixture of tempos. They hit a quick slant on a 3rd down that I thought was nice. Hadn't done a lot of that this year. They had those little, inside, I don't know what you want to call them, quick routes, curls, stops.
Choice routes,
options. Yeah.
Search.
Yeah. Yep, there you go. Where Dylan's getting the ball out after a 2.5 seconds. I think part of what they're trying to do, and I get this, is over the course of the game, you're trying to create, okay, we're going to take this early, we're going to bring you up a little bit, then we're going to try to go behind you. They didn't get really behind USC, which, again, has good players. USC has good players. They have good safety.
Yeah. Oh, my
goodness. They're good players. And Nebraska's faced about 4 or 5 safeties this year that are going to play in the NFL, and I think Ramsey's one of those for USC. So, trying to get things, trying to separate, get guys open. The Lindenmeyer route, Emmett Johnson on the sort of an option route. But the key was they got him isolated. They took the USC defense away from it so that if he made a move and made one guy miss, he could score. There's just little things. Certainly not everything changed or anything. That wasn't what we saw. We saw more Bonner. I think that was the season high in snaps for Bullock. Season high snaps for Emmett Johnson, which I appreciated. I think he's the best, the most complete of the backs. So, you know, I don't know that we saw a ton different, but we saw a few things. And I think on Saturday we'll see a few more.
Yep.
No, Wisconsin is, I don't know what they're going to do. They can do whatever they want to do. I think they are who they are, and they'll probably just come in and just do what they've been doing. I just think
now that is a very good defensive team.
Wisconsin?
Yeah,
they're good.
Yeah,
they're good. They're not hellacious pass rushers the way they have been in other years. So they've had years, obviously, when they had the Watts, when they had the blitzing linebacker. I can't remember his name. Chris Orr, who's now a defensive coordinator in the NFL. They've had some years where they're really, really good, like upfield. They had, what was the guy? Vince Beagle a couple years ago. I think that was his name.
Yeah, Herbig. I mean, they've had some fellas.
They don't have that, I don't think, and so that's good for Nebraska.
Where do you want to start? Herbig, T.J. Edwards. I mean,
right.
They always
right.
have that.
And Van Ginkel, and so they've had a bunch of players like that, and I don't feel like they're quite as dynamic there.
That's because they all play for the Steelers, Sam.
Right. Part of what's catching up with Wisconsin is Paul Chryst recruiting, and people don't want to hear that up there. Just like people didn't want to hear that Frank Solich's recruiting maybe tailed off a little bit at the end when he was let go, and he was let go too soon, as was Paul Chryst. But part of what's catching up with that defense, they don't quite have the players that they did, and they don't, so they're just a little bit not quite as good as they were 4 or 5 years ago. And so Nebraska can catch Wisconsin on Saturday. I'm not saying they're going to beat them, but they're favored for a reason, and it's because Wisconsin just doesn't have quite the players that they did. And I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Hey, Sam, so we saw a lot of the similar because I do agree with you. A lot of the same concepts, just enough wrinkles, especially with the interior route concepts, like, the little choice routes and winning and man-to-man. And I felt like the changes that Coach decided to do really put a lot of the onus back on players and playing, right? Because for the last 2 weeks, we've heard him address that more now than at any point in his career. I'm still not sure Nebraska passed the players making play test. But if Nebraska doesn't have good enough players, because I kept hearing that, I'm still not sure I agree with it. Actually, I don't agree with it. They need to get better in some key spots. How do they get themselves in these positions where they take these teams down to the wire and we're still saying we don't know the difference between execution and scheme?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll address the question this way. I do think Nebraska has pretty good players in certain spots.
Yeah.
I also feel like, to be clear, that the two teams that they've just played are talented teams. And so, it's going to require Nebraska to play really well to beat USC. It's not, and I understand that people are like, well, they're 5-5, and I get it. If you swapped Colorado and USC leagues, you would swap records at the same time. USC is a better team than Colorado, and they have better players. And so you have to play at the highest level possible. And when you get a 7-0 lead, and then you have a chance to get a pick, when Maeva is just kind of throwing the ball up there, that's a tough deal. That's, Tommy Hill kind of misplayed it. And Robinson's 6'6", and there's a great photo in the World Herald of that play. But, there's just little things like that. You've got to find a way to make plays that they're not quite making. And their margin for error is very small. It's just very small. There's not much difference between 5-5 Nebraska and the Ohio State team that won by 4. There's not much different. There's no difference between Kansas and BYU. The margins have disappeared. The problem with that is Nebraska can't take games off. They can't come out with a mediocre effort like they did against UCLA in the first quarter. You have to play with your hair on fire. And I think at times it's not their effort that wanes, but the quality of their execution and the quality of the decision-making on the field is just not quite what it needs to be. Dylan Raiola made some really good plays on Saturday. He made 2 plays, and he knows which ones. The lack of a dive for the first down, he slid, which he shouldn't have done, and I think he knows that. And then the interception, which was just not a good decision. I mean, that was maybe one of his poorer plays of the year, to be honest with you, because they were moving the football, and he did not need to throw that pass in there. He just did.
So, Sam, let me ask you something. Coach Rule said something. We kind of glossed over it because we weren't. And I think not that we don't know, not that we weren't paying attention. It was just kind of a very vague term. He said, these are 3 winnable games. It's going to take tremendous focus. I think we maybe thought super big picture, like, hey, how are we practicing and what's our day-to-day routine? And that's all part of it. How about the focus situationally, like catching balls you get your hands on, or so I can think of 4. And the most underappreciated one might have been the scoop from Bayer, where you're thinking, if that was Nebraska, it's probably a scoop score, right? Where you scoop that thing up and he eventually gets 6 points out of it. Or the play before the sequence before Branch scored on the little quick hitter, where Nebraska could have picked the ball off a couple of times. The touchdown where Nebraska didn't intercept the ball in the end zone, because we kind of fast forward to Hartzog, but at least he plays hard. So I'm fine.
Oh
with
yeah,
he plays
very hard.
He plays hard, and I think that can pay dividends. But anyway, having said that, like just making those plays, a ball is thrown behind a player. Buddha Wright's good enough, but just situationally, it would have taken pretty high focus to know that, okay, don't panic. The ball's behind him. I'm worried about where Lemon is because I'm in man-to-man. The ball is thrown right to me, right? Like, so sometimes you have to be in those situations. Sometimes you just have to make a play. Where do you draw that line, though, when you're looking at focusing and what Coach Rule meant by it?
I would also substitute in the word awareness. So, like the idea
is it situational? Because sometimes you have to be in it.
Mm-hmm. I think some of it is situational awareness.
Okay.
Those, like you build a body of knowledge over time.
Yeah.
Over the course of many years, and for example, I think Dylan Raiola knows better next time that when he's in that situation to dive instead of sliding. And it's the slide thing is tricky because a lot of players just forget. Oh, when I slide, it's where the ball's at.
We see it cost quarterbacks
every week,
every time. I watched it twice in the Steelers game.
Yeah, happens all the time.
Yeah, it happens a lot. And then like kickoff return awareness, the mistake that Barney made at Indiana. He probably won't make that mistake again, but he made it there. Little things like that. I think just a kind of awareness of. Now, here's the flip side of the coin. Brian Buschini had a really good game, and to his distinct credit, what he has learned is you'll sacrifice a yard or two on the depth to get the direction. It's not about the yardage; it's about preventing a return, and he did a really nice job of preventing a USC return. He hasn't always done that. Like that wasn't necessarily in his repertoire last year, but he had a great game. Then you have situational awareness of like, you don't catch a punt on the 5, you probably try to get over and do the center field thing when the punt's going to land at the 12. But maybe Garcia Castaneda was instructed to do something different. It's hard for me to say. So there's a lot of different moments like that in the course of a game, and that's what makes football cool because it stresses your mind and your body probably in a totality in a unique way. And I haven't done any of that since high school, and I was a scrub when I did, but the collegiate players spend a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of thought about how they're going to execute a certain play. And that's just the way it goes down. I think Dylan's still growing as a player. He's growing. He's still learning how to process everything that's in front of him. And as he gets older, he will improve. One thing that I will just say about Dylan, think about this as a 4-year journey, and if you're worried about not getting out 3, don't worry about that. Think of it as a 4-year journey. Wherever that journey takes you, think about 4 years instead of 3. You look at a guy like Bo Nix in the NFL, and Bo Nix is a good athlete, but it took him 5. And then he got out, and now he's in the NFL, and look at what he's doing, and it looks pretty darn good. Jaden Daniels took 4. You don't have to turn this thing into, I was here for 3 years and then I got out. Like, you look at the collegiate journey as a 4-year journey, so that when you get in the NFL, you are prepared for everything that you're going to see, and you're not overwhelmed. Drake May is overwhelmed, for example, and he only started for 2 seasons. So little things like that. I think if Raiola is patient, he's going to really like where he's at one day, and he needs to try to not, because I know there was a lot of talk, it's going to be 3 years and he's out. Don't think of it that way. Like, this was a good year, but I think he can have an even better year next year, and he's a 4-year player. Think of it that way, as opposed to the 3-year plan. 3-year plans are for corners. That's what I say.
Sam,
or receivers. Jeremiah Smith could go to the NFL tomorrow, right?
Sure, yeah.
And it'd still take him a year to adjust.
Yeah.
But quarterbacks
maybe. Receivers seem to transition pretty quick. Now, it's kind of weird how that happens.
I think the further
Remember
away,
how we hit that little lull from like 13 to from like 12 to 16 or 17? We're like, it takes receivers a little bit of time to recover.
Nah, not anymore.
Nah, man, these guys, they just come into the league now and just do work.
Start balling. Sam, want to fast forward to Wisconsin this week. I think sometimes as Nebraska fans, we kind of get a little tunnel vision and think that, we're the only ones kind of going through it. Wisconsin going through it this year as well. Obviously, they're onto a backup quarterback. They just fired their offensive coordinator. How do you kind of process the turmoil Nebraska's going through versus a team like Wisconsin who, they're firing that OC. They don't even have the bye week to kind of figure that out.
Yeah, Nebraska went through what Wisconsin's going through now 20 years ago. So Wisconsin's walking the path that Nebraska did, and I just don't know if Wisconsin's going to have any better result than Nebraska did. Wisconsin fired a guy probably too soon. He got crossways with the AD for some reason. I don't really know why. And then they hired a coach who, again, they decided not to hire Jim Leonard, the defensive coordinator, and kind of keep the Alvarez family going. So they go outside of that and they hire Fickle. And then Fickle decided, for reasons that maybe he can only explain today at his press conference, to hire a guy he'd never worked with to run his offense. And it didn't work. I don't think the two of them got along. I've kind of followed the coverage up in Madison. I don't think the two of them really liked each other very much. I don't think that the offense really worked.
Yeah, boy.
It's not that offense can't work. I think they tried to run the ball. I think they had some nice concepts against Nebraska last year that I was impressed by, but it just wasn't coalescing. And the reality is, up there, the talent's just not what it was. They don't have as many elite players. And so what's happening right now was probably going to happen all along, but they probably should have kept Chris for another year and then brought in a coach and made it a little bit cleaner. Made sure that Chris failed all the way, and he hadn't really done that. So that's probably the way I would have handled it, but they did what they did. It's a little different because, again, their offensive coordinator, I feel like, was not really on the same page as the head coach, whereas with Rule, I just think it was evident that things weren't going to go the way they needed to go with Satterfield. So, but they're very close. So I think there's a little bit of difference there, but both teams are hungry. They both need a win. They both play rivals next week. And this is probably the game for Nebraska. It's got to be an all-in, put all the chips to the center of the table kind of experience on Saturday. Not because you can't beat Iowa. You can. Iowa can beat itself, but it's very challenging.
Sullivan's done for the season, too.
So they're going to be down to a third-string quarterback.
Yeah, so it's very hard to go into Kinnick Stadium at night there and beat them. Teams don't do that. It doesn't happen very often. So you have to know that if you're going to go do that, you're going to have to play the best game of the season, of your year, of the tenure. And, you may as well just do that this week at home. You may as well play your absolute A game at home. And you know what? If Nebraska plays its A game, they're going to win. If they play their A game at Iowa, I don't know. But if they play their A game on Saturday, if they play the way they played against Ohio State on Saturday, they're gonna clinch a bowl. So that's what they've got to try to do, is play the absolute best football they can.
Sam, let me ask you something. Do you get the sense that Nebraska is close enough, and maybe outside of just playing in all these one-score games, where you can take temperaments of guys like Lloyd and Bonner and Emmett Johnson and say, you know what, let's go with they play hard. Like, are they a play hard kind of team yet?
They certainly can be, yeah. Yeah, there's guys out there that really want to play hard and try hard, and Emmett Johnson's probably leading the pack there. Great effort guy. I think they can play. They play hard. Yeah. They don't run quite as well on defense as they did last year. Last year's defense was kind of played out of its mind at times, and I thought the level of effort and hustle was almost maniacal.
Yeah.
They're not quite that way this year. I'm not sure why. I think that's something they'll have to examine in the offseason. Secondary maybe isn't quite as good. They're just not quite as maniacal as they were last year, and I think you see that at times. But yes, this team can play hard, and I think they can win on Saturday. I think it's a really important game for the Rule era. I think everybody knows that, but play like it. Play your absolute best game right from the start, right from the starting kickoff. Don't waste any time. We'll see what happens.
That's Sam McKewon from the Omaha World Herald. Sam, we appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you next week.
Take care.
More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
I'll be honest with you, I don't remember. I remember the one, we threw the fade down the sideline, and they reviewed it. We felt like they brought 0, so you threw it to where it's supposed to be. Gave Jamal a chance to make the play. I guess he ended up out of bounds, so he's kind of that was draped all over him, pulling him down. So on the other one, we ran a mesh concept, looked like the guy flashed open. But a lot of things happen. So I think I'm sure if you asked Danny, maybe there's a call here or there he'd like back. But I think a lot of the things were just we're going to get the ball in the playmakers' hands and have them make people miss, and kind of goes back to the statements I made to you guys. You call the plays, give guys a chance to make a play. They're going to go make a play, and we'll continue to work on making more plays.
Halfway through the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're brought to you by our friends over at MH Hospitality. Make sure you get to mhhospitality.net to check out all of their properties and locations. It's that time of year. You're going to have family coming in town. Maybe you don't want them in your house. Maybe it gets a little squeezed. Maybe too much of a good thing isn't always a good thing. Get over to mhhospitality.net where you can stay once and create memories forever. And, maybe keep your family out of your house a little bit, too. That's always a plus as well. DB, let's get to our friend Pete here on the Hurrdat Hotline. Pete, what's going on, man?
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
What's up, bud?
Pretty good. I've got about 3 questions for you, and then I'll hang up and listen to your answer.
Do you want us to answer all 3 when you hang up, or 1 answer, 2 answer? What?
You could answer all 3 when you hang up.
Okay, got you. All right, go.
The last play of the game was pretty egregious on the referees not calling that pass interference. And there was another one during the game that was obvious pass interference. The ref was about 5 foot from the play and didn't see it. We should be talking a little bit about that because I think they took away the opportunity for us to have another play. And that's given that the receiver wouldn't have caught that ball, and I think he was in pretty good position to come back and catch it. Number 2, why do we run the ball with success and then all of a sudden go to 3 pass plays in a row? We have a quarterback that's not seeing the field very good, telegraphing his passes, but yet we continue to rely upon the pass more than the run. When you have success, stick with something. And number 3, do you think maybe we can get some high school refs or something to finish out the season, because I am sick and tired of such egregious poor calls?
I appreciate the call, Pete. 1 and 3 sounded pretty similar, but that's okay.
Okay.
On the questions. So the first one was, why aren't we talking about the refs more? That was the first question.
Yeah, that's really hard for me, but I
mean, he's not wrong.
No, he's not.
Like, I just don't know what else to say about it, I guess. Right? Like, it's egregious. It's obvious. I don't know. I mean, honestly, that the pass interference, I think there was one at the end of the first half on Banks, and then one at the end of the end of the game on Banks.
Well, they replayed the catch inbounds or out of bounds. I couldn't believe
that they didn't overturn it, or that they didn't call it in the first place.
That wasn't PI.
Yeah. I know. I was actually listening to the broadcast at that point, and you were like, yeah, they should probably just give that to him because they missed the PI so bad.
That's how I felt, right? But I know you couldn't, and I think I said, I know you can't do that, but
they probably should. Like, I think that all the time when I watch replays. It's like, I feel like this is maybe a make good, or should be a make good.
Like, that was really, really bad.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even, so I'm just telling you, the thing that drives coaches the most crazy is when you act like it's no big deal.
Yeah.
Like, at least say,
hey, I missed it.
Hey, I'm
sorry.
Or something.
Yeah. Acknowledge your mistake.
Because not all missed call or whatever, man, like, are created equal.
Yeah. Situationally, they can be way more important.
That potentially is the difference between a shot at 3 and a shot at 6.
Could be the difference between a win and a loss. Let's be honest.
When you play so many one-score games, so that was pretty blatant. Now, like the last one, sure, it was terrible pass interference, but the duality, the reason why I don't even like myself sometimes is because I'll make the case either way. I'm like, yeah, that was clearly pass interference. But why didn't he just put it on him more to not give a secondary defender a chance to come over and make the play?
Yeah.
Right? The ball, it stayed in the air too long.
Yeah. Which
So you give a DB a chance to come undercut it. So they got distracted with a guy making a play on the ball versus if you throw it a little sooner and it's just a little more on him, it's more one-on-one. And if it's more one-on-one,
it's harder not to make that call.
Harder not to make the call than it is when you let another guy get in the play. Because
I heard that argument. It's like, well, he threw it. There was a guy right in front of him. It's like, yeah, the pass interference happened before that.
Yeah.
Like the grabbing inside the shoulder pad happened before that.
So I'm probably not like the ideal guy to talk about officiating. Because,
I mean, and also
I'll give you it's not my fault. Like as taught, like that's what my coaches would tell me. Right, move on. Don't put him in that position. But I can also acknowledge, hey man, just talk to me.
Yeah, and also like
right?
you do your job better. Like I'm sorry, like be better at your job. Like I'm gonna try and execute better. I need you to try and execute. What was
the irony that we got penalized on a improper fair catch this week, but not last week?
Right? Yeah,
I couldn't believe it.
Unbelievable.
I'm like, guy's got a funny sense of humor.
One of these.
I'm like, I tried to get that call last week. He told me it wasn't a penalty. This week we got called on it, and we did it.
Yeah. Yep.
I was like, huh, that's weird.
Well, I mean, we don't.
So you want to say things, but I'm like, nah.
Well, and there's, we're not even talking about on the Deuce Robinson catch on the sideline where he steps out of bounds. It's illegal touching.
Oh,
like that's not legal. Like that's not legal.
But you know what? Then I say to myself,
Nebraska probably should have made a play on that ball too.
So some people think Maava is the answer. He had to have thrown. Listen, he had to have thrown at least 7 interception-worthy balls. They do chart that.
I know. I was counting.
At least I'm like, you guys are hanging your hat on this. This is not.
I had 4 in the first 2 drives. And I think you're right. I think it was 6 or 7 for the game.
This is not.
Can we be honest about the Maava situation here? Like Miller Moss decided to transfer, and then I know that's not how the news came out.
Well, you guys kept trying to cram it down my throat. He's a running quarterback too. I'm like, I don't know about that.
He can move a little.
He can move, but I don't know if he acted like he was running on broken glass. It was effective when he had to do it, but he's not what I would call
No, he's not a mobile quarterback.
Yeah, he's not a. No, he's mobile.
Well, he's not a running
quarterback.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I mean? So I'm like, but the thing. So there's little things within the thing. Sam was talking about the DBs and not playing as well. I do think there's something to. I say this all the time, but it's hard to explain unless you're coaching or you're a player and you know what I mean when I say marrying coverages to scheme. Right? Nebraska was clearly trying to what I would call box the counter. You saw the 2 pullers. Number 2 receiver would go get safety. They'd leave the corner. They were trying to box it by meaning they want to keep it inside of the pullers.
So you have defenders go to the outside to force it back to the inside.
So they wanted it to fit inside the hashes. Marks was hitting that thing behind pullers. Problem is you're boxing for either a displaced linebacker, a backer that has been removed from the box, or you're counting on your third level to come down and fit in the
downhill
game one-on-one. Well, it wasn't working. Now convert. So you could say, man, where's the secondary in their run fits? Or are they so displaced that they don't have a chance to fit in the run game, and you maybe need to spill it. Now spilling would mean
get to the let it flow to the outside.
Yeah,
just push
think
it all
of
the outside.
Water off the table, right? You pour water on the table, you want it to slowly flow off the
Force
edges.
Sideline.
You don't want any immediate run seams, vertical.
Yeah.
So you take the pull, you wrong arm the pullers, and you force the play to hit out around.
You're basically just buying yourself time for more guys to come make the play.
To run it down laterally.
Yeah.
Now, there's pros and cons shoot, we've got caught in both.
Yeah.
Right. Papillion did, and we kept trying to box it, but our will was displaced, so it was too far for him to run.
They're pretty good at cutting back those counters.
Do you know why the cutback was there? because we were trying to box it.
Yeah.
And our will is displaced. Mm-hmm. So we're like, quick. We're like, oh, fudge, right? When they wham this guy, we want to box this. He's got too far of a run. So they got two good,
they got good backs.
Yeah, they're going to cut that thing back.
Mm-hmm.
So that we had to just start spilling it. We just made collisions, and we're like, let our safeties be the free runner hitters.
Yeah, get to the outside, make the play outside.
Now your secondary's got to be able to tackle, but you do have those conflicts within the game. North punched us in the mouth with Maryland High, right?
Mm-hmm.
We had to start to spill that.
Yeah,
and we were spilling it to corners that weren't hitting in the fit right. So it's like you have to coach that up. It's not just like, hey, stop the run. There is like games within the game.
A lot going on there.
Where you have to make it work.
We've got more Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Johnson the back. 2 wideouts left. One tight to the formation of the near side. Straight back is Raiola. Has some time. Goes to the middle. Pass caught. Splitting the defenders. Emmett Johnson to the 10, to the 5. He is in there. Touchdown, Nebraska. Emmett Johnson makes a catch. A little short dump over the middle of the field. Reach down the near sideline. And Nebraska right back within a point.
Wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. Got to give a shout-out to our friends at Union Omaha. The USL League One champions got the W yesterday, 3-0, to be the first team in USL League One to get the second championship on the scoreboard there. So congratulations to Union Omaha. Make sure you go check out unionomaha.com for all the things that are coming up next. They did a great job this year. Not only won the regular season, won the postseason championship as well. So congrats to our friends over at Union Omaha. Speaking of our friends, we've got our guy TK on the line. TK, what's going on, bud?
Good morning, fellas. How we doing?
What's up, buddy?
Sorry, I got to catch my breath here. I set down some weight. Every time that you guys pick me up, I'm always in the middle of a set. You guys know how Goliath, gained a lot of notoriety, not only because he was huge, apparently, but every time they sent a warrior to go fight him, they came back dead. And the more warriors that they sent, the scarier and bigger he became.
Sure.
And then they sent the kid David to go fight him. Hey, one good swing knocked down Goliath. They cut his head off. I think some youth is needed to fight this bull drought bear. I think, tell me if this is fair or foul. I don't need to see 2. I don't need to see 8. I don't need to see 6. I don't need to see 56 on defense. I don't need to see 54. I don't need to see 66. Again, they did great. I know it's senior day, but this whole year was senior day. They couldn't do it.
I appreciate the call, TK. It's always hard because I don't know if he's making a statement or asking a question with the cadence. But having said that, I mean, I get it. Listen,
I get where he's coming from.
Well, you want to read my text messages? Listen, this was sent at 7:57. And a gots to go situation. 2783. Joel just asked on Twitter. At least he asked it in a very marish type way. Can you explain why this defense suddenly looks so passive? I think UCLA will roll USC in part because their defense plays with an edge that will make USC's new quarterback look silly. Yeah, I'm not a Maeva guy. I'm not.
Nebraska had the opportunity to make him look really bad.
Yep, and they could have done it early.
Yeah.
And
especially when he was shook. After the pick six, he was shook.
Well, and he hadn't thrown good balls.
No. It took him probably 3 series. Even on the series they scored.
I like the little look, the little end breaker he hit to Deuce, where he threw it to his top right shoulder and it was kind of over Malcolm's outside shoulder. I'm like, that's good ball placement. But for the most part,
was not impressed. Was not impressed.
Like it's going to be hard to make a living like that.
Threw a lot of interceptable balls.
And Nebraska didn't make him pay. But so I'm trying to explain this, and this is where video cameras. I was so eloquently explaining the difference to you between boxing and spilling. And like I said, spilling, you want things to go outside.
Forcing the outside.
The best 4-3, the best even front spill team that I had seen in the last 25 years was probably 30 years is probably Miami, where
early 2000s
and throughout their success, they were a 4-3 spill team, little smaller, undersized, 1s and 3. Their tackles penetrated, ends forced things to bounce. They would teach either wrong arming and I don't hate wrong arming. It's just hard to teach. They would play pullers and force you to get to the outside. it was very counterintuitive to how defenses used to think. Defenses used to think, just don't let them get to the outside.
Yeah.
Just don't let them get to the outside.
Box
just,
the option in.
Yep. Just don't let them get to the outside.
Keep them in a messy area.
So, generally speaking,
but Miami had guys that were fast enough; they were always going to get to the corner.
And you had great tacklers in the secondary. If you're going to spill, you got to have really good speed, and your secondary has to be able to tackle.
Yeah.
So, like your coverages have to marry your philosophy. So if you play like quarters or man or two or whatever, and you get a formation, so Nebraska right now is a little vulnerable to these kind of condensed run pass sets because they put you in conflict.
Because if you're trying to box, right, you need your secondary to come down and tackle.
Yes, as
the run fits
on
the counter
in the interior.
Right.
Yes. So they have to be able to tackle between the hashes.
But if you need them to do that, and then you run play action out of
you're going to have to hold.
Yeah.
It started like where it started to really be an issue was Indiana, and then they would go back and forth with the cat and mouse matchup with
Nebraska.
Ohio State.
Nebraska never caught up with Indiana.
They won some against Ohio State.
They lost
some.
Yeah, one of the big one was the Ryan.
The Jeremiah Smith with the
handoff.
I call it the switch release.
Yeah,
but again, condensed
because he's inside there.
It's the exact same premise. The condensed
as the
2x2 set. Okay, you've ran the ball out of it before. You show run action. Now, what Ohio State did was Jeremiah Smith just went from the number 1 receiver to the number 2, and he just went down the hash. What Deuce Robinson did was he ran the over route all the way across the field, but he went from outside to inside across your coverage. So Nebraska sees run action, and they're like, oh, my gosh, they just motioned 87. We've been getting hit with counter.
Come downhill.
I'm a B-gap run fitter on the weak side. Oh, my gosh, this guy just ran right by me, right? So Gift's got to be talking to Singleton. Singleton's got to be talking to Buford. Hey, in, like in breaker, however, whatever it is that they say. But the conflict is in that coverage. My run responsibility is what it is, so the play action holds me for a second. Now, you can pass that off. It's not impossible. I mean, people run they run coverages behind fronts all the time. Nebraska got to talk better.
Yeah.
But they've shown vulnerability to that. So what's happened to Joel's question is I've now become tentative because I'm not really comfortable with my run pass reads. Right? I know I have to fit in the run game like this, but this is what they're showing me, so I have to hold. So they have to process through that. Like that's something I think that they're going to have to work through in the offseason. Because I get it, right? Don't play this guy, don't play that guy, don't play this guy. We need to get more athletic, this, that, and the other. But sometimes when you with paralysis, you don't play very fast.
Yeah, you look slow.
You look extremely slow.
I think that's why you have calls like Brian who goes, I don't think we have very good players. It's like, I don't think that's what it is. I think there's talent there. It's just when you're unsure, you look really unathletic.
You can tell. Well, you do need to play harder. Though.
Yes, 100%.
You do need to play harder.
Which is why you'll ride with Hartzog despite the mistakes.
Yeah.
Which I get.
Yeah.
I still need to make the plays.
I got to figure out where like if you're going to protect guys, but they're good at certain things, like what you use with him.
Sure.
But I'd ride with him.
Sure. For what it's worth, I know
you ain't going to take plays off.
I know you were talking about participation charts earlier today. For what it's worth, the only two guys on defense that played every snap were Singleton and Gifford. The only two guys that played every snap, Singleton and Gifford. So that's something. You were asking about Fedoni, though, earlier. He only played 30 snaps, which is less.
Significantly lower.
Significantly less.
Bonner. And it's weird, too, because he's probably closer to the solution than he is the problem if utilized correctly. But I don't want to make any sweeping.
That second part, if utilized correctly.
Yeah, well, that's coaching, though.
100%. Yeah. I don't think that's on him.
Yeah. So,
mentality-wise, I don't like the other thing we're talking about.
It's like the officiating thing.
Like Fedoni's going to play hard.
Like people complain about officiating all the time, but that's why I said I'm not the right guy to talk to.
about officiating.
Because as a player, I want control.
Yeah.
Like if you throw me a ball and I can intercept it, I'm
go intercept it.
I don't care that.
Yeah.
You didn't call holding or that he stepped out of bounds, right? But I do want officials to be better. Just assume this is how I feel. This is why I don't like robot ups.
Mm-hmm.
I think human error is part of the game.
Sure.
Although I will admit to you, people get mad at me. Oh, but it could cost you the game. It does, and that hurts like crazy. I still think Jesse James did not fumble that ball. It was a catch against the Patriots. Like I understand. I don't think. I think William Floyd fumbled in the bowl game. I don't think there was I understand.
Yeah.
But I want to be in position to not have that affect me.
Yeah.
So if I do what I'm supposed to do, maybe it doesn't come down to that. You know why? Did anybody see Lloyd running or Barney running down the hash in the 2-by on that last drive? Just throw him the ball. Then it doesn't come down to that.
You see Banks,
but I can say that.
You see Banks running wide open in the end zone, throw him the ball.
I can. Oh, on the little, they faked the screen.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted that little variation off that look, right? Well, he came open. Throw him the ball.
Throw him the ball. Like,
and if you do, then we don't care as much that he got pulled out of bounds.
Yeah. Like, yes, the officiating was bad, and throw him the ball. Like, you got to make the plays. Also, like, both of those things can be true.
It's pretty open.
Borkature played just 2 fewer snaps than Fedoni.
Bork's a stud.
And Bonner played 23 to Fedoni's 30. So upticks for both those guys.
So you expect more change.
Yeah. Will Backus coming up next, talk a little national college football.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Viewers from the shotgun. Has the snap. Looks right. Pumps. Now looking. He got a man wide open in the end zone. Easy catch. Matt Golden. Touchdown, Texas. There wasn't anyone within 15 yards of him. And Golden has it a 20-yard catch. Matt's 7th touchdown of the season.
Flagway, who's lined up in the slot, now comes back to quarterback and scoots Jackson to his right. Takes the snap knee high. Pump fake left. Now throws left toward the end zone. Turnaround catch. Badgers got it. Touchdown. Gators.
4th and 1. Darnell.
That's false start.
Takes a shotgun snap. Back to throw. Pressure coming. Goes down the middle. It is picked off at the 2. Barnes takes it. Ball game. Sealed. The Tigers win it here in Pittsburgh. 24-20.
Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. We are joined now by Will Backus of CBS Sports to talk a little college football. Will, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great. It's always a pleasure to chat with you, too. I can't believe we've only got 2 weeks left of the season, but I'm sure it'll be an exciting 2 weeks.
Speaking of which, Will, I know there's still 2 weeks in the season, but I want to start with a couple of teams. And I think I'm mad at myself because I should know who I still have no idea who they are, except when I look at the rankings, we think they're pretty good. Let's start with Texas. For like 8 weeks, I'm like, gosh, I think Texas is pretty good. I love their talent. I get the half against Georgia. I still think they struggle a little bit with like pass protection and getting vertical sometimes in the passing game from the quarterback spot. But I think they're pretty good. Could I get a pass that somebody else, hopefully you don't exactly know who they are either?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because we were talking about it this weekend, when we were watching them. It's kind of hard to figure out what they are. I know that they are a very good defensive team.
Yeah.
That's pretty clear from watching them play. And I think a lot of their offensive issues boil down to the offensive line has not been as good as we might have expected. I mean, coming into the year, this was a unit that a lot of people thought was going to, win the Joe Moore Award as the best offensive line in the nation. They've got a franchise tackle in Kelvin Banks. He's played well, but the rest of the line, they're very veteran and they just haven't played up to the standard. And then Quinn Ewers has had his fair share of struggles too. You mentioned the vertical passing game. Texas has a lot of skill position talent, and they have the ability to stretch the field really well, but Quinn Ewers is not very accurate downfield. He's really inconsistent. He missed on a couple throws Saturday that could have been deep touchdowns, and you look at the score and you're a little more impressed. So, yeah, I think they're a very good defensive team that is disjointed offensively, and they're very inconsistent. I mean, on their best day, I would, put them up there as one of the best teams in the nation. But if you catch them on a day where they're not clicking totally, then you're going to get a game like that Georgia game where they're out of it for most of the game. So, you don't want to see that inconsistency for a team that you'd expect to compete for a college football playoff. So, yeah, they're inconsistent.
Gosh, I feel like the next team I'm going to ask you about, you can say all the exact same things except for maybe the skill outside the numbers. What about Penn State?
I knew that's what you're going to ask about.
Like, I don't think Penn State is as good, yet all they do is win. Like, who's Penn State?
Yeah, I mean, it is a lot of the similar things. Kind of
good defensively.
Yeah, great defensive team. I think their offensive line has been really solid. They've definitely got better running backs than Penn State. Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen are, one of the best duos in the entire country. And then they've got a fantastic player in Tyler Warren, who I just love watching how they move him around all over the field. I mean, I think he's lined up at quarterback, running back, fullback, tight end, wide receiver.
Yep.
They had one point where he was an offensive lineman and he caught a touchdown. Like, the way they use him is just crazy. But yeah, I mean, Penn State is one of those teams that, I'll be interested to see, because they're going to make the playoffs. Obviously, I don't see them losing to Minnesota or Maryland. And I'll be interested to see how they kind of handle that, because the narrative around James Franklin is that he just cannot get it done in big games.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Texas with Steve Sarkisian, Steve
Sarkisian has won some big games. He's kind of got that track record so far, but James Franklin over the past few years just cannot get it done. Ohio State was their one big game during the regular season. They lost. Played really poorly on offense. Defense was great again. The offense just was awful. And so, I'd like to say that Penn State is a team that can push for the national championship because I think they are a pretty complete team. I really like what Andy Kotelnick has done, especially with the offense.
He's creative, isn't he?
He's super creative. I mean, it was awesome watching him at Kansas, and now that he's got kind of a bigger platform there in the Big Ten, at one of the traditional blue blood schools, it's pretty cool that he's getting this platform to do that stuff. And he's revitalized Penn State's offense. Like Drew Aller, his numbers may not pop off the page, but he's playing the best that he's played in his career. And so, yeah, like they're a really good team. I think that they could push for a national title. I don't think they're going to get a chance to play for the Big Ten championship. Still could with all those wacky tiebreaker scenarios.
Yeah.
But yeah, like they can't win that big one. And I'd really like them to see them do that before I pick them to go any far, but they're not going to get a chance against, Minnesota and Maryland.
Well, I have like 3 questions I want to ask you, so I'm going to try and kind of organize my thoughts here a little bit. We'll start big picture and work to small picture here. Big picture, kind of going off of DB's thoughts. Which teams at the top do you feel like you know the most about? The teams that you're the most confident in who they are?
I'd say I'm fairly confident about Ohio State. I know that they obviously had that slip up against Oregon, but if Will Howard doesn't slide there, they've got a chance to win that game. It's a really close game between 2 really good teams. Ohio State and Oregon, I feel pretty good about. I think they've both proven it. I know Oregon's had its moments where it struggled this year. That Wisconsin game on Saturday was not pretty. That's not what you want to see from a number 1 team in the nation this late into the season. But I can't ding a team for struggling because every single team has struggled this year. So like to be 11-0 at this point, I think is extremely impressive. Oregon's a very complete team. I don't see any major holes on their roster. A lot of their struggles this year have just kind of come down to Dylan Gabriel not quite playing up to his normal standard. But he's typically a pretty consistent quarterback. So I'm not really worried about Oregon. And then Ohio State, like I said, yeah, lost to Oregon, but that was just 2 national championship caliber teams battling it out in the regular season. And I know Ohio State teams were frustrated about Ryan Day losing another big game in the regular season, but it's a little more than that. There's a reason Ohio State's number 2 right now. There's a reason that there's a lot of people that are like, well, Ohio State could work its way back into the number 1 conversation if they beat Indiana. Because Ohio State's a really good team. Where this late in the season, again, really complete team. I think Will Howard, maybe there was a light bulb that flicked on after that Oregon game because he's kind of put a lot of his early season struggles behind him, and he's hitting on every stride. That defense is filled with NFL talent. Obviously, I don't need to talk about their wide receivers. Everybody knows about them. So yeah, those are 2 teams, and obviously 1 and 2 that I feel pretty confident about this late in the year.
Will, I want to ask you about the Big 12 because I feel like we don't know who anybody in that conference is. You have BYU, they're undefeated until this past weekend. You have Colorado, who is just kind of cruising along now. You've got a bunch of teams that seem to be about the same. If you had to, I guess, bet on who makes it alive out of that conference, who you put your money on?
Yeah, it's funny. The Big 12 seems like a conference where nobody wants to win it, except for maybe Colorado. I mean, Colorado, I mentioned this earlier with Oregon. You got to say something about them handling their business. Like, I know their schedule hasn't been too difficult so far. I saw a stat the other day where Colorado has a chance to make it to the Big 12 championship game, and they would not have played any of the other teams that are in the top 4 of the standings right now. But again, preseason, you look at their schedule, and you saw that they had to play like Utah and Oklahoma State and Kansas State. And so it's not their fault, it's just that these other teams have really struggled a whole lot. And I mean, Colorado has looked pretty complete when I've seen them play. I think they've taken especially some huge strides in the trenches. Their offensive line is still giving up 32 sacks this year, I believe, that's not great. I mean, it's still near the bottom nationally, but they gave up 56 last year. And so that's a big step forward for them on the offensive line. And you pair that with a revamped defensive line that currently ranks 6th in the nation with 33 sacks. So they're getting after the passer on a really consistent basis. They had 4 sacks against Utah Saturday. So I think Deion Sanders has taken the steps that he really needed to improve this team, because obviously they have the talent with Travis Hunter and Shadur Sanders. They've got really good wide receiver talent. They've had those flashy skill players for a while, but then he really put a lot of effort into improving the lines of scrimmage, and that's why they've taken such a huge leap this year. So, I mean, I think Colorado's looked really impressive, and BYU, despite the loss to Kansas, I know Kansas's record may not reflect it, but Kansas is a pretty good team. I was pretty high on them coming into this year and was kind of surprised that they struggled as much as they did early in the season. So, I think Colorado and BYU look good. I'd also keep an eye on Arizona State. I mean, the Sun Devils just keep winning.
Yeah, quietly answered a game in which people, I think, thought was a little dangerous for them this past weekend.
What was that? Sorry.
They quietly answered some questions in a game that I think people thought was a little dangerous for them this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, the win against Kansas State was super impressive. And, I think Sam Levitt's been awesome for them at quarterback. The only loss that they've had recently was against Cincinnati when he wasn't out there because he was hurt. And so he's been very consistent for them at quarterback. Cam Scadaboo is one of those players that they move all over the field and do all kinds of things with him. He's a super special player. And then their defense is, held Kansas State to 14 points. That's a really good offense that they held down. So Arizona State's got a big one against BYU this Saturday. They win that game, and they're right up there, and they kind of control their own destiny to making it to the Big 12 championship game. So, yeah, I've been really impressed with Colorado. I still think highly of BYU, and I would definitely keep an eye on Arizona State.
So, will all in or kind of all out or somewhere in the middle with Rhett's, with Lashley's kind of his – I mean, it seemed like he spoke a lot of truth about the perception of conference strengths, right? When, they have a winning record against 2 of the 3 other conferences, and they still have a couple of games pending with the SEC. And he said, when the SEC has an upset or teams lose, it's, Vandy beats Bama and they talk depth. But in his conference, Georgia Tech wins a game and they're not very good. Do you subscribe a little bit to that, or is that just kind of a coach sticking up for his conference?
Yeah, I mean, I think conference perception definitely does. It plays into the decision process, right? Because we're having conversations here where, we're like, well, there could be like 4 2-loss SEC teams that make it, or can a 3-loss SEC team make it? Like, there's still people that are talking about that. Whereas, yeah, you mentioned the ACC. People are like, oh, maybe that's a 1-bid league, but you've got 9-1 SMU, 8-2 Clemson, 9-1 Miami. Those are 3 teams that might finish the year with just 2 losses, regular season with just 2 losses, and we're not having the same conversation about the ACC maybe getting 3 teams in with 2 losses. And I think the bias comes from, the SEC is traditionally a very strong conference. There's a lot of 2-loss teams because there are good teams that are beating up on one another. But then you've got an Alabama that lost to Vanderbilt, or you've got a Tennessee that lost to Arkansas, or you've got an Ole Miss that lost to Kentucky. Those are all really bad losses, whereas SMU's only loss was against BYU earlier in the season. Miami's only loss was on the road against Georgia Tech, and I think Georgia Tech's a pretty good team, even if the rankings might not reflect it. Georgia Tech's definitely better than a Kentucky or an Arkansas or a Vanderbilt. So maybe not better than Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's good this year, but definitely better than Kentucky and Arkansas. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that's where coaches can kind of get frustrated with the bias a little bit. It's not that the SEC isn't a strong conference. It's a very strong conference, but you've got a lot of these college football playoff contending teams that have really bad losses over teams like SMU, or Miami, where they're going to have to win their championship game to get in, even if their losses might not be as bad, and they might still finish with 11 regular season wins. So I understand his frustration there.
Yeah, well, it's about getting the benefit of the doubt versus not getting the benefit of the doubt, right? That's at the end of the day what we're talking about. SEC teams get the benefit of the doubt with conference losses, and like an ACC or a Big 12 team just doesn't.
Yeah, it is benefit of the doubt. And I even saw conversations about how the Big Ten could be in trouble because the SEC has so many teams that are kind of in that logjam. And that's a little ridiculous to me because, I mean, the Big Ten, you've got Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State. Those are all top 10 teams right now. And Indiana, too, which, you know, I just know that if Indiana does not beat Ohio State, Indiana is going to get left out. And I think that's kind of a shame, especially if it's a close game to Ohio State, because I think Indiana's been really good this year. I know Indiana has questions about its schedule, but, I mean, they've dominated pretty much every game they've played. The only one they struggled against was Michigan. So, yeah, like it's you know, those bigger conferences do get a lot of benefit of the doubt. And, you know, I don't know. I mean, we saw it last year with Florida State getting left out for an SEC team. There's probably going to be something this year that upsets people. You know, I just wish that, and a lot of it is also kind of hypothetical, where they're like, okay, well, instead of what teams have earned it, they try to envision what the best teams are, what the best matchups are. And so I just kind of wish they put a little more stock into like actual kind of regular season results, if that makes sense.
Well, let me ask you something. I'm just going to take advantage of your Rolodex because I know I like the way you think. Two coaches that we kind of take for granted. Both have been Coach of the Year. One guy, multiple. If they were available today on the open market, would you take Gundy or Kelly?
I would probably take Mike Gundy. And that's just because I look at it from the perspective of he, especially recently, I know Oklahoma State's having a really rough year this year, but especially recently, I think he has done more with less. Whereas I look at Brian Kelly, and obviously
his press conferences are getting worse by the week.
Yeah, I mean both Brian Kelly and Mike Gundy, they're pretty electric press conferences to watch when they're losing. It's pretty entertaining. But yeah, like I think Mike Gundy is a guy that's done more with less throughout his career, especially recently. Whereas I look at Brian Kelly, and he's had some really good years at Notre Dame. Obviously, he's normally a consistent 10-win guy, but he's always had the resources to build a national championship caliber team, or at least a conference championship caliber team. And I know he didn't play in a conference in Notre Dame, so that's just really based on the past few years at LSU. And he's never been able to break through. So I would say he's more of a coach that tends to do a little bit less with more. Obviously the wheels are falling off this year. But like last year, they had a Heisman Trophy winner in Jaden Daniels. They had two.
Look at NFL rosters. It's like, man, I know you're a good coach, but like, what is going on?
Yeah,
I mean, everybody on yesterday, like, there's an LSU guy or two or three on every roster.
Yeah, and I'm not saying this to say like Brian Kelly's a bad coach. You know, I don't want people to go run on.
Yeah,
multi-coach. Like, Backus said Brian Kelly's a terrible coach. No, that's not what I'm saying. He's a good coach. If I had to pick Gundy or Kelly, I would pick Gundy because he's coached, done a good job again, except for this year, coaching his team up and really kind of overperforming what you'd expect with how they recruit. Whereas Brian Kelly's always had the resources to get multiple 5-star guys. You know, rosters loaded with NFL talent, and he's never really been able to break through. So I kind of like a coach that can bring guys up and not necessarily a coach that, like, yeah, he's going to win you plenty of games, but there's the caveat that he's just not going to be able to get it over the edge.
Well, let me ask you another coach would you rather question, and I'll bring this one a little bit closer to home. After almost 2 years in, two guys hired in the same cycle, would you currently rather be Luke Fickell and Wisconsin or Matt Rule and Nebraska?
That's a tough one. I would probably say Matt Rule.
Yeah.
And I think that's because Nebraska still has a little bit more brand recognition than Wisconsin. Plus, you've got the most bought-in, loyal fan base in the entire country. Like, I'm pretty sure Nebraska could go 0-12 for a decade and they would still sell out every single
no.
Please don't test us.
Oh, listen, the last year and a half, Will, like that's like the I'll jump thing. Like I swear I'll do it. I'll stop coming. Like don't.
Yeah.
Now you saying that, they're like, see, no, we're not coming. It's like they take us for granted.
Obviously, I've got like compared to y'all, I've got like a 1,000-foot view on things. I'm not quite as plugged in.
Here they go now. It's like, yep,
but
it's over. We'll have 48,000 versus Wisconsin. No, I'm just kidding.
But yeah, like I think the buy-in at that university is insane, and like I keep thinking like, all right, well they've got to get back at some point. I think now they've got to make a bowl at some point, but. Yeah, like I think just because of the alignment at Nebraska, the buy-in there, that's a place I would rather be. Again, not saying Wisconsin's obviously not a small-time school. They've got an incredibly rabid fan base too, and they've got a lot of buy-in there. But I think Nebraska's probably a little bit easier to recruit to, especially for those, more modern mid-tier Big Ten teams that can't necessarily stack talent like an Ohio State or an Oregon. Nebraska sells itself a little bit more as a brand, and so I'd feel a little more confident there than I would at Wisconsin.
Will, I'll get you out of here on this. I look at some of these teams, and Ohio State still on the surface kind of appears a little disjointed. Super talented, a little disjointed. Ole Miss, super talented, a little disjointed at times. Tennessee, the list goes on and on. Could I make the case to you, even of the 12 teams in the NIL highly talented era, that it will be a team that you'll look at and say, you know what? I think they're the most cohesive. They appear to be the most complementary that wins this thing at the end. Even amongst the elite of the talented, could I talk you in that it will be cohesiveness that gets those teams over the top?
Absolutely. I mean, I think, especially when you're talking about a more extensive postseason, you could use college basketball as a model. Obviously, there's a lot more teams in that. There tends to be more variance just because it's a 64-team field. But if you look at the teams that have won championships recently, like the UConn, or like the teams that have made it far, like the UConns and Purdue, those are really veteran teams that play super well together, right? It's not necessarily a team that's a collection of all-star blue-chip guys. They are the veteran teams, and they've got talent. They're not untalented teams, but they're really experienced teams that play super well together. So I think in a deep postseason, and this is a deeper postseason than we've ever seen in college football, where the national champion is going to have to play 17 games. You want a team that plays super well together. So that's going to be a huge factor in the postseason. And with a lot of these teams that you've asked me about, like those high-level teams that or like we still don't know what they are, like Texas or Penn State. Like a lot of their struggles have come down to inconsistency. And I mentioned when Texas is playing as well as Texas can, that's a national championship team, but Texas does not always play as well as Texas can. And so if Texas is playing a first-round college football playoff game, or, if they get a bye, a second-round college football playoff game, but they're not at their best, that's going to kill them, no matter how much talent they have, versus, I think like a Boise State team that has been super consistent all year. They know what they are. Their only loss so far has been a 3-point loss to Oregon, but they consistently put up a lot of points. They consistently run the ball super well. They have an identity. They've crowded around that. That's going to benefit a team. Being able to be consistent, complete, play together, play well is going to be, I think, the recipe for success in the 12-team college football playoff era.
Will, we appreciate the time. As always, we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Will.
Yeah, appreciate it.
We'll be back with more Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back. will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. It's time for Bet On It, brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook, the best place in Nebraska to place your sports bets. Make sure you get to the casinos in Lincoln or in Omaha where you can bet on nearly every major sporting event. Maybe you could have gone over this weekend, made a little bones on John's Bones Jones this weekend. Heard I think the payout on a second round KO was about plus 220. If you wanted to get that action.
That was devastating. Did you like the still I sent you?
Oh my gosh. I don't know how that guy is alive.
Those hurt.
But if you made that bet, you'd have cashed out. You could do that and more. at Warhorse Sportsbook. No bets, no glory. Yeah, I thought he liquefied his insides.
Yeah, he in his press conference, do you know why he developed that spinning back kick?
Why?
Because he said he thought as a fighter, if you watch him, he does not possess one punch knockout power. And I was like, wow, that's interesting.
Oh, my gosh, yes.
One of the most deadly people on the planet feels as though he came up with some other thing.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't have one punch knockout power.
Yeah.
That's how you know how tough that sport is.
That's also a little, like a little self-awareness there, where he's like, hey, I might be the best there is, maybe the best there's ever been, but there's a place I can get better.
This dude hates him some Tom Aspinall. Wow.
Not about that. He wants Pereira.
Yeah. Dana White said something interesting about being able to respect and work with a guy even though you have never agreed on much of anything. That's he and John Jones.
Which is funny because he comes off as like a huge John Jones advocate.
Yeah. It's rocky at best.
Well, it's a business decision, I think.
Yeah.
Not sure how much you like Conor McGregor either, but business decisions,
It's a great card.
Yeah.
Yes, I like fighting.
You do like fighting.
Yes, I do. I like it a lot.
Big UFC guy, big boxing guy.
Yeah, Bud teasing us with his tweet. I'm like, dude, what are we doing?
Hey, let's get out to Memorial Stadium, watch Bud Crawford fight.
Yeah, the problem is when those dates are going to be open is you got to get somebody that's going to want to fight you. You can't control the weather either.
No, can't control the weather, and you're going to have to be a pretty – if you want to sell that thing out, I think it's probably going to be a pretty big name. And I'm not sure how many big names are itching to come fight in Terrence Crawford's backyard.
$90K. That'd be a circus.
That'd be unbelievable.
It'd be more than $90K too, because
the field.
Yep.
Yeah, it'd be closer to the volleyball, like 92.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see what we can do. I'd go.
Would you? I'm glad you were picking up on my question, because I wouldn't. Speaking of bet on it, I wouldn't bet that either guy is for sure coming back, and it might be on both their own volitions.
Gundy or Brian Kelly.
Yeah.
It's super.
Because you're not running either guy out.
I mean, I would.
At least I don't.
If I had to, bet on it, if one guy gets run out, it'd be Kelly.
Not for $60 million.
Do you think LSU cares?
Yes, I don't think they're in a great spot fiscally.
Maybe, I don't know.
But do you not like look at the NFL rosters the last handful of years?
No, it's ridiculous.
It's all LSU guys.
It's all
LSU. Or a lot of LSU.
A lot of LSU guys, and you had a lot of Notre Dame guys when he was there.
Yeah,
like it's not like he wasn't pumping out NFL guys at Notre Dame either. There is a ton of Brian Kelly dudes.
I just can't believe some of the
NFL
stuff he's been saying.
He just seems miserable.
And then Gundy's like preaching patience.
Yeah. I think Gundy wants to stick around. He seems less miserable than Brian Kelly does. Brian Kelly seems miserable.
Or mad or something.
One or the other.
Pick like something.
Pick an unhappy emotion.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a dude that does not seem to be enjoying himself. And he's 63. Like, you want to just keep doing this and be mad all the time?
You know what surprises me? That when Will's not the only one, there are lots and lots and lots of people.
Yeah.
You know who just never compared to let me ask you. Who's the least impressive team you've watched given their level of talent?
Given their level of talent.
It's easy for me.
Well, I think there's a couple. I do think LSU's up there.
Okay.
I think USC's up there. I think that's a really talented football team.
Okay.
That doesn't play very well a lot of the time. I don't think that's either of who you're talking about. I'm trying to think. Honestly, LSU probably would be my answer.
You know what it is for me? Because I think they could have 10 guys minimum going in the first 3 rounds.
Who?
Don't you think Ohio State should be better?
It's hard for me because they are still pretty good.
Like how are they?
But watching them from week to week, right?
Yeah. So my original question is not who's not good.
Right. No, I know. But compared to what they've got on the roster, to what it looks like.
You think that they would just be blowing the doors off people?
Yeah, you would think so. Although I kind of feel that way about Oregon too.
I don't. I think they have better talent than Oregon.
I think they have better talent than Oregon, but I also think that
and Oregon has a more effective quarterback.
So
I didn't say better.
That was the thing I was going to say that's hard for me with Ohio State is I have to factor in the Will Howard of it all. I mean, going back to the offseason and the spring or the whatever, about a year ago when they got Will Howard in the transfer portal, I don't know what that looks like at Ohio State. I don't know if that's a great fit for Ohio State.
Ask the folks at Warhorse, like who's the CFB fave right now? Oregon?
Probably, I would guess.
I bet
so.
they're not.
You don't think so? You think Ohio State's higher than them? Or maybe Texas? I bet Texas is the favorite.
Really?
I kind of think they might be, yeah.
Well, I'm going to look it up.
People are kind of obsessed with Texas a little bit. I feel like.
Do you feel like I am?
No. I mean, not obsessed.
Because I do.
I think you're really interested by them because they're kind of a little bipolar.
But I know they're uber talented.
Yeah, 100%.
Especially defensively.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, you could make a
But then I watched them but we kind of predicted this about Arkansas.
Yeah.
I'm like,
if Arkansas doesn't turn the ball over, they can beat just about anybody.
And Arkansas stinks offensively.
Yeah, really bad.
No, I wouldn't. That's not true.
They're not good.
It's very hit or miss.
Yeah.
And
Super
Texas is really, I mean, for a half, you're like, man, how's Arkansas going to score?
At all.
And then you look up and it's 13-7, and you're like, how?
What's happening here? Yeah. Texas, you could make an argument. You could put Texas in that same group for their talent level on a week in, week out basis. But again, it's because of the quarterback. I'm not enamored with Ewers.
But I will say this. Texas looks more cohesive.
More often.
Than Ohio State.
I would agree.
Ohio State's just so good.
Yeah. I mean, we heard it all offseason, right? How good this roster is. Urban Meyer's telling us. Every analyst that you would listen to says this might be the best roster Ohio State's ever had.
Yeah.
But you've got this quarterback that's just sort of a weird fit. Kind of a square peg, round hole, maybe not super efficient.
I'm surprised you put SC in there because I don't love them in the interior.
I don't love them in their interior either, but for what they look like on a week in, week out basis versus what I think their talent is, I think they're in that conversation. Now you're talking about different tiers, right? Like obviously Ohio State's talent's better than USC's, but USC's results have been much worse than Ohio State's too.
We both raise an eyebrow over Indiana if they get dusted off. That didn't surprise you?
I think at 11-1 they're still in.
I can't help but
I think
I can't help but to like. This is dumb because we've won state titles, but I kind of look at Millard South as one of these super talented teams, and I look at us as like we have good players.
Yeah,
we're a little younger, but we're very cohesive.
A little
so
Indiana
it's like. Yeah, I'm just hoping yeah. I mean, kind of, like in my head.
You kind of feel like it's like the matchup this week, Ohio State versus Indiana. A little bit?
Yeah, what's the line? Because then
I'll
tell you how close I feel like to that analogy or not. Like if it's like 20, and I'm like.
It is 12.5.
Yeah, that's probably about how I feel. Because I feel like people feel like if there's a blowout to happen, it would be us getting blown out, like not us blowing them
That's
out.
probably the common consensus.
Right? I would think. The feel, yeah.
I think people probably think if Westside's able to win, it's going to be close, and that it could get away from them. It could get away from Millard South.
I appreciate the vote of confidence.
I think that's the general perception. That's all I'm saying.
It's all right.
So that's the general. I'm trying to get the pulse of the people.
It's the competitor. Like you
got to stay on it. You got to stay on it.
I know it.
What do you think happens tonight in the NFL?
I don't have any idea what kind of psyche Dallas has.
I don't either.
But
I don't know what the Texans' psyche is either.
Texans are one of those teams we're talking about. Super talented.
Not cohesive.
Yeah. They need another threat outside the numbers.
Yeah, they need their wide receivers stop getting hurt.
Just one more.
They're -7.
Seems awful low.
Smells stinky.
Dude, who's taking snaps for Dallas at quarterback?
The great Trey Lance.
I mean, 7? P.U.
It feels like I'm staying away from that one. That's Bet On It, brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook.
We will be back. will be back. We will be back. We will be back. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Off up under center, turns, fakes the kid to Jameer, throws, end zone, caught! Amon-Ra St. Brown, touchdown Detroit Lions. Goff with a dart, 14 is having a day. 16 is having a day. This whole team is having a day.
Snap, Lamar moving out to the left. Lamar being strung out, and Lamar flings it backhand incomplete, and the Steelers defense has come up with a stop.
Shakir in motion right to left. Here's the snap. Blitz coming. Allen has to throw it. Wide open. It's Samuel scampering to the end zone, and he's in for the touchdown.
We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. We're here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, where you can come and watch the first ever NEB Preps Football Awards on December 3rd. They'll be handing out awards for all classes, offense, defense, special teams, and a big game chain of the year as well. Make sure you get out to Eventbrite or to hurrdatsports.com to register to show up here and support NEB Preps. That'll be a fun night hosted by our very own Mike Sauter.
Oh, Jerome. Jerome's in the house. I said Jerome's in the house.
I'm sure DB will be there. He loves high school.
I don't love Jerome.
You love high school, though. Big high school football guy.
I am.
People know this about you.
I am. I'm a big high school sports guy in general.
You are. You watch a lot of high school sports.
Love high school sports.
Not just football, big hoops guy, you know, often found in the corner of a gym somewhere.
Yeah. Got that right.
Just hiding.
So my man TK has sent me the list.
Yeah.
This is currently on FanDuel. Ohio State plus 320.
Okay. They're the favorite.
Oregon plus 440.
Okay.
Georgia on my mind, plus 480.
Ooh.
Texas, plus 550. Alabama, plus 800.
Yep.
And Ole Miss at plus 1,000.
Ooh, pretty good value on Ole Miss there.
So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those are your 6.
Pretty good value on Ole Miss.
Ole Miss is one of those teams I'm talking about. Ole Miss is a team that appears to be pretty cohesive.
Yeah.
Especially if Dart's healthy.
Which is kind of funny because of how many transfer portal guys they brought in.
Well, so does everybody on this list.
Right. But that's a team that I think maybe it took them a little bit in Ole Miss to kind of,
with the exception of Georgia,
not a lot of portal guys there.
I like Georgia though.
Mm-hmm.
I like Georgia.
I don't know off the top of my head.
Georgia. So the thing about Georgia that gets over, they haven't hit on their O line like they have in the past couple of years, right? There's a little. Kirby hasn't said this. It seems like there's been a little bit of a philosophical change where they're a little lighter, a little quicker.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, not quite the behemoths.
So maybe they're transitioning through that. And I can get over Beck.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Because he's won before.
Yes. And I cannot get over, and I know he makes.
I'm with you, though. I kind of do like the Ole Miss thing at a plus 1,000.
That's good. That's the best value on the board. Although I will say Texas at plus 500 is interesting.
Yeah, I'm surprised they're behind Georgia.
I am too.
Even though I know Georgia beat them.
Yeah.
I think Texas is more on the same level as Oregon.
Agreed. Like if I'm sitting here in a vacuum, I know they played each other. I get it. But if I'm sitting here in a vacuum and I look at each game they've played, I think Texas is better than Georgia. Like if I'm just whole resume. I get they played each other and they lost to Georgia. I get it. And that matters. But if I'm doing odds,
you put them closer to Oregon than you. Not so much as an indictment of that they're behind Georgia.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think they're closer to second or third, or should be closer to second or third in the odds than they should be behind 4 or 5 other teams.
I am pleasantly surprised that Ole Miss is in there because I brought Ole Miss up.
I'll take that Ole Miss plus 1,000 though.
They got good players.
That's a good. And I mean, you know me, I'm a Lane Kiffin guy. I think he's.
I'll take it.
The dude's good at what he does. I don't know how else to say it.
You know, one thing I did feel good about.
What's that?
I didn't think is a very good football team. I didn't get the Tennessee thing.
So I wanted to ask Will about Tennessee because it's so bizarre to me.
If they would have won, I would have been eating some serious crow.
Yeah,
because I'm like, I just don't think they're very good.
Well, and it's super weird to watch.
I let Oklahoma be my influence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember when I'm like, well, that Oklahoma team's pretty bad.
Yeah, and they couldn't score on them.
Couldn't score.
Now the defense is okay for Oklahoma.
Couldn't score.
It's really weird to watch a Josh Heupel team that can't score. Like it's super strange, and they're getting carried by defense. Obviously, their defense wasn't good enough to beat out Georgia, but like you just sit there and you go, "How am I watching a Josh Heupel team that can't score?"
Yeah,
like every week, especially. And I know it was against bad competition. You remember the first 3 games of the season where they're averaging like 70 points a game?
Yeah.
And now they come in and they go, hey, this team can't score at all. We're not talking about dropping off from like 70 to 35. This team's putting up like, I think it's like 18 points a game in conference, something like that. It's bad. Like it's not good.
Yeah.
Nobody's trying to run Josh Heupel out of town. Nobody's trying to run Nico out of town.
So his like in-game stuff and his halftimes.
Heupel.
Don't give me a ton of confidence. But I may know too much, like so my judgment is clouded, like to not stay in the moment.
Mm-hmm. Know too much about Heupel?
Yeah, not behind the scenes, but I've seen this act before.
Okay, yeah.
You know, of multiple places that he's been.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of who he is. It's been kind of who he is.
That's what I think.
I think it's going to be really interesting to see what his long-term future is. Because I obviously think he's got a certain level.
Yeah, they paid a ton of money.
Yeah,
to put that roster together.
And I think he's got a certain level of acumen offensively, at least. I just don't know as a program leader necessarily if he's kind of built for this stage. I don't know. Now he's won a lot more than a lot of other guys, so it's hard to put too much on him. But I don't totally know what to do with Josh Heupel in Tennessee moving forward. Like if I'm giving you Heupel in Tennessee for the next 3 years, or I'm giving you Mike Elko at A&M for the next 3 years, who you taking?
Probably Elko.
Yeah, I think I would too.
But I mean,
but Elko's got less of a track record.
He recruited I know more about Elko's personality.
Okay, fair.
From when he was at Duke.
So a little bias there.
Not bias, just an advantage.
Yeah, more information.
What I think he's about.
That's fair. Let's do this instead. Josh Heupel for the next 3 years. Brian Kelly for the next 3 years. Assuming Brian Kelly's there for the next 3 years.
I don't think I could be. I don't think I could be around Brian Kelly for 3 years. I've said before, like this dude can flat out coach.
Yeah.
And 4 years ago, Shane, remember when I said I can't believe I'm going to say this out loud, but I said I'm actually coming around on Brian Kelly in his interviews.
I thought, whoa.
You remember that?
You are no longer coming around on Brian Kelly on his
interviews.
I
think something's.
It sounds really familiar, and I don't remember anything.
He seems like he's unraveling a little bit.
He's mad.
Yeah, just mad all the time.
So I don't know. It's amazing how 3 weeks have gone by, and now we're back off of Nussmeier.
I was never on Nussmeier.
Oh, listen, national guy after national guy. I'm telling you,
dude. They were saying that before the season.
Anticipation, and I'm like, I don't know.
What did I say before the season?
Doesn't have elite anticipation, and he doesn't have great arm talent.
Those are two things. If you don't have either one of those, it makes it tough on you.
Just seems like everything had to kind of be perfect.
What did I say before the season? We're assuming that they're going to lose a super dynamic Heisman Trophy
I remember
because
I was like, 11 touchdowns and 7 picks coming into this one. I don't understand.
And we're just upset. We're just assuming Nussmeier's going to be good.
He's throwing to some fellas now, though.
He sure is, but you got to have the quarterback a little bit. I mean, Quinn Ewers is throwing to some fellas too. You enamored of Quinn Ewers?
No, but I think
better than Nussmeier.
But to answer your question, I'm definitely taking Heupel.
Heupel over Brian Kelly?
Yeah.
I think I would too.
For 3 years.
I'm trying to take age out of it in my mind, although it's hard because I do think Brian Kelly's kind of
go
over it.
Go back and Google some news on Oklahoma State too. Gundy's been interesting the last handful of weeks to listen because that's another guy I think's a really good coach.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm taking him over Brian Kelly though.
Oh, you're going back to what Will?
Back to the question you asked Will. Like I don't. At some point, getting the good players matters, right?
Yeah.
Like I get coach him up and whatever, but it's not like Mike Gundy's coaching.
You're not trying to make a living polishing turds, huh?
Yeah, no, just give me a sandwich and not a bleep one, you know?
Yeah.
Like Mike Gundy's coaching in the Big 12. He's been coaching in a big boy conference. It's not like he's coaching at Tulsa.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Right?
No, you're exactly right.
It's not like we've seen a lot of guys at Notre Dame that struggled to get high-end players at Notre Dame, right? That's a challenging job, recruiting-wise. Like, Brian Kelly being able to do what he did at Notre Dame isn't nothing. And
he's clearly a good coach.
Oklahoma State has, no offense, dramatically lower academic standards and a boatload of money, especially for most of the time that Gundy's been there. I know him and T-Boone kind of butted heads a little bit, but the checks were still cashing.
He and Dabo have kind of hunkered down though on their NIL stance.
Yeah, they have.
Yeah.
But that's not a place that you can't get guys, is my point.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm with you.
So if I have to decide between the guy who's a good coach that gets good players and the guy who's a good coach and I'm not sure how good of players he gets, that's a pretty easy call for me. I'm gonna go ahead and go with the guy that gets good players. Like I love when we have these coaching discussions and they're like, "Oh, but he does more with less." It's like he's the reason they have less. It's his fault. It's not like he inherited less.
Not like your guy Sataki.
He's been there.
You want to go back to that?
For almost. He's been there for almost. I'm just ignoring it. He's been there for almost 20 years. He's the reason there's less.
Oh, man.
It's like, oh, man, it'd be great if it weren't for this damn GM. Oh, wait, I'm the GM. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We'll be back with Hurrdat Sports tomorrow.
See you. Have a good day. Love you.